If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 111, Shocking Information. Still second? Rei's expression remained calm after receiving the news from Misaki. However, he also had to admit that Japan's local comic industry was, in fact, developing extremely well, and the quality of its top works was genuinely high. Even with his full confidence in Hikaru no Go, under the pressure of intense, high-quality and high-volume weekly serialization, it had still taken nearly a year for the work to even approach the top. And this was only one of the 6 major journals. If it weren't for the excessive number of top-tier comic journals in Japan, with readers being spread across so many works, perhaps the sales of the most popular tankban could easily be double what they are now. That wouldn't be impossible, Rei said, taking a deep breath. In his previous life, during the serialization of Dragon Ball, both magazine circulation and tankban sales far surpassed competing works of the same era. But at that time, there were very few true competitors. By contrast, Japan's comic industry now had a slightly lower overall average ceiling, a massive population, and yet far more journals and serialized works than in his previous life. This inevitably diluted sales numbers for even top-tier series. However, anyone with a discerning eye could already see who was most likely to have the last laugh in the battle for the top spot in Dream Comic. Hikaru no Go had surged from 15th place in its debut issue. Its fanbase was growing week by week. Its topic popularity was climbing steadily. Meanwhile, the popularity of Source War Chronicle had largely stabilized. The surge in votes this week was more a defensive reaction by longtime fans than organic growth, and such a state couldn't last forever. Even readers who didn't normally vote wouldn't continue doing so indefinitely, even if they voted occasionally. And besides, who could predict Hikaru no Go's vote count next week? Another major surge wasn't out of the question. In schools and in everyday society, fans simply felt that discussion around Hikaru no Go was becoming more intense with each passing week. But professionals, critics, and media within Japan's comic industry understood something deeper. The competition between these two works had fully entered a head-on confrontation. Even if Hikaru no Go couldn't hold the #1 position for years like Source War Chronicle, achieving first place even once would already be historic. For Rei, a high school senior, a 17-year-old genius comic artist, to top the rankings of one of the 6 major journals just a year after debut, that would be an unprecedented achievement. And likely one that would never be surpassed. For several consecutive days, discussion surrounding the Hand of God and the ranking battle between Hikaru no Go and Source War Chronicle continued to intensify. Then, Wednesday arrived once more. On this day, both Hikaru no Go fans and Source War Chronicle fans, driven by media hype, clearly understood that their supported works were entering a critical phase. Many people couldn't sleep. They woke up early, flooding forums and igniting flame wars. Hikaru no Go fans, get lost. Go Manga has this many readers? Has Dream Comics readership fallen this low? Source War Chronicle is even worse. This manga should have ended ages ago. The author keeps dragging it out because it still makes money. I loved it 2 years ago, but now I can't even read the plot. Without nostalgia and old fans, why would it still be ranked first? If you can't read it, that just means your taste is poor. Go watch elementary school kids play Go more often. I only read the first few chapters of Hikaru no Go and dropped it. A story about a kid cheating at Go with a ghost is liked by this many people? Their moral compasses are twisted. That's because your understanding stops there. If you read further, you'd know Hikaru quickly comes to hate relying on Sai. He doesn't want to be called a genius through cheating, he works hard to improve on his own. People like you just love shallow criticism. If we're talking morality, the protagonist of Source War Chronicle starts out as a thief, which is far worse than Hikaru. Source War Chronicle fans are always like this, looking down on other works in the same journal. Now that their favorite is about to be overtaken, they're panicking. Even if Hikaru no Go does surpass it, so what? In commercial value, global recognition, and IP development, how can a Go manga compare to a battle shonen? Only someone brainless would compare a Go manga's commercial potential with a battle series. What I know is this: since serialization began, Hikaru no Go has influenced tens of millions of Japanese citizens to pay attention to Go. The viewership of Japan's Go A-League has doubled compared to last year, and the Go Association has officially recognized Hikaru no Go's contribution. When Hikaru no Go ends, who knows how many years it'll take before another popular Go manga appears. As for Source War Chronicle, if it ends, it won't make much of a splash. There are simply too many substitutes. Ui Nakamura was fiercely debating with Source War Chronicle fans on the forum early in the morning. In Japan, in any industry related to traffic, there is an inevitable trend towards idolization, and comics are naturally no exception. The debate over the top works of the 6 major journals can be said to be an enduring topic in the comic world. It's a pity that Japan's comic world currently lacks an epic masterpiece like Dragon Ball from his previous life, which settled the debate. Regardless of whether you're a hater or a fan, whether you like the work or not, the data shows that Dragon Ball was indeed an unbeatable comic of its era. If you disagree, there's nothing you can do. Your mouth can be as stubborn as a dead duck, but the data doesn't lie. Precisely because of this, the top-tier works in Japan's comic world are incredibly chaotic, with various fan groups attacking each other. Because Hikaru no Go's ranking rose too quickly, it had only been in the top 3 of Dream Comic for a little over a month, so it had received less criticism from haters of other works in this regard before. But now, it was already competing with Source War Chronicle for the top spot in the journal, and various haters had already caught wind and come looking for trouble. For fans like Nakamura, reading Hikaru no Go was a pleasure, but online debate was also another kind of pleasure, wasn't it? It was only when she came back to her senses during a break in the debate that Nakamura checked the time, 8:50 a.m. The bookstore is open. Nakamura quickly got up and turned off her computer. The bookstore was right downstairs from her residential complex. She rushed into the bookstore as quickly as possible and could already see many Dream Comic fans holding journals, queuing to pay. Many also picked up the 8th volume of Hikaru no Go, which had just been released a few days ago, intending to pay for it as well. This week's comic cover was very similar to last week's. The journal's operations staff still placed Hikaru, the protagonist of Hikaru no Go, and the protagonist of War Chronicle in the center, facing each other. Seeing this scene, Nakamura's emotions surged even more. I hope Hikaru no Go fans will all work hard, unite, and show some spirit this week by voting for Hikaru no Go. Otherwise, if it's second again, Source War Chronicle fans will laugh for another week, and I'll have to fight another week of uphill battles online. Picking up the journal, Nakamura walked towards the cashier. She quickly returned home and opened the comic page. The title of this chapter was Let Me Play Against Sai. Just from the title, Nakamura could largely guess what the plot content would be. Last week's plot was about Hikaru finding the only move that could turn the tide in the game between Toyokoyo and Sai. So, what would Toyokoyo, as the world's #1 player, do after losing that game? Retirement might not be a big deal for Toyokoyo. He had won all the championships he could, and he was hospitalized due to a heart condition. But perhaps fame and fortune didn't matter, but what about winning and losing? He had played Go his entire life and lost to an online player he had never met or heard of. Was he willing to accept that? And if he wasn't willing, if Ui Nakamura were Toyokoyo, what would she do? If it were her, she would definitely think, let's play another game. The comic began, continuing from last week's plot. Hikaru was excited because he had found the winning move that turned the game around between Sai and Toyokoyo, completely unaware of Sai's complex and uneasy emotions as he watched him from the side. Hikaru even worried that Toyokoyo might actually retire because he lost to Sai, so he visited Toyokoyo again at the hospital. But the first thing Toyokoyo said when he saw Hikaru was, "Sai, is that you?" Ui Nakamura's heart leaped. She even had a faint expectation in her heart. Why don't you, Hikaru, just admit it? Anyway, Toyokoyo isn't a big mouth, and he'll keep his promise and won't blab. Mainly, Ui Nakamura also felt a bit sad. Sai was so strong, even defeating the world's #1, but no one in this world knew of his existence. Everyone only knew Sai was strong, but they didn't know who Sai was. No one in the entire world even knew that a Go player named Sai existed 1,000 years ago. But Hikaru, hearing this, suddenly panicked and repeatedly denied it. When I was playing against Sai, I unconsciously thought of you when we played in the new First Dan tournament. Toyokoyo looked away and said. Nakamura looked at the comic, unsure if Toyokoyo truly believed Hikaru's explanation. Just like Akira, he said he didn't believe Hikaru was Sai, but Akira had clearly confirmed from Sai's Go that Sai was the same Hikaru who first played against him a few years ago. What about Toyokoyo, who was stronger than Akira? Couldn't he tell that Sai and the Hikaru who played against him with a 15-stone handicap back then were the same person? Hikaru's silence made Toyokoyo's gaze even more serious. Never mind, I don't want to pursue it anymore. For me, who Sai is isn't the most important thing, Toyokoyo said earnestly, with a pleading tone. Hikaru, let me play against Sai one more time. Even if it's online Go, it doesn't matter. I won't force him to reveal his real name again. Yui Nakamura found this page of the comic a little funny, but also a little sad. Sai finally stood before the world's top players. But in this world, no Go player knew that a person named Sai existed. He was just Sai, a name, a symbol, a virtual existence. As long as Hikaru didn't admit his relationship with Sai, there would never be proof of Sai's existence in this world. And Hikaru's eyes became thoughtful upon hearing this statement. Play another game? That's right, this way Sai can continue playing with the masters, and he'll feel better. At this moment, Hikaru was still considering Sai. But then, one sentence from Sai directly changed Yui Nakamura's expression dramatically. She even jumped out of her chair, holding the comic journal with both hands, unable to calm down. It's already too late, Hikaru. Sai's eyes became sad. I have no future. I can feel a power draining from within me. My time is running out. The hourglass of time, which was once still, is now slipping away. Yui Nakamura's mind buzzed. Why would this comic suddenly throw out such a bizarre setting? This. What does this mean? Hey? Is this trying to scare us Hikaru no Go fans? Sai must be joking, right? Why would his time be running out? Why would his power disappear? Yui Nakamura suddenly thought of settings found in some ghost stories. Once their wish is fulfilled, many ghosts disperse on their own, reincarnating, and so on. But this is a Go sports manga, not a ghost horror manga. Shirogane-sensei, what are you thinking? Can Sai apply those settings? And it was Hikaru who found the hand of God, not Sai who found his own hand of God. Sai's wish hasn't been fulfilled. This should just be the author trying to scare us fans, right? Yui Nakamura thought so, but years of reading comics made her anger start to accumulate. If Sai really disappeared, she was already prepared to go to Shirogane school to confront him. Chapter 112, Debate. She had thought this was the biggest piece of information in this chapter. But in the following plot, Toyokoyo explicitly stated his intention to retire. However, retirement didn't mean he would stop playing Go, rather, it meant freeing himself from the constraints of being a professional Go player and the pressure that came with being the world's #1, allowing him to play Go as he wished. So Toyokoyo asked Hikaru not to worry. Toyokoyo was a man of his word, but that didn't mean his bet with Hikaru would send his life downhill. As the conversation between Hikaru and Toyokoyo involved more and more information about Sai, C.G. Ogata, who had originally planned to visit his teacher in the hospital, overheard parts of it from outside the ward. He immediately rushed into the ward to question Hikaru, who, in a panic, tried to escape but was blocked at the elevator. After catching up to Hikaru, C.G. Ogata also strongly demanded that if Hikaru knew Sai, he should arrange for him to play a game against Sai. At the same time, Akira, who had just arrived, noticed their argument. C.G. Ogata believes Sai and Hikaru are not the same person, but Akira recalled the first time he met Hikaru. That game of Go and the game where Sai defeated his father both flashed before his eyes. No matter what, Hikaru is the key that connects everything, he must know the answer to all the mysteries. Nakamura sighed softly as she read this. You've guessed very correctly, but unfortunately, as long as the protagonist doesn't personally tell you the truth about Sai, you will forever only be able to doubt between the weak Hikaru you defeated with your own hands back then and the powerful Hikaru you met for the first time, never truly being able to determine who the real Hikaru is. This chapter ended with Sai becoming emotionally unstable because he foresaw his imminent disappearance, while Hikaru, thinking he was just throwing a tantrum, also became upset, leading to a small disagreement between the two. After turning the last page of this manga chapter, Yui Nakamura felt not only anger but also panic. Once was enough, but in one chapter, the possibility of Sai's disappearance had been emphasized twice. Shirogane. You better just be trying to scare us. I can forgive you for creating such a red herring plot at a critical point in the manga to increase the tension among manga fans, so they'll vote for your Hikaru no Go. If you dare to let Sai disappear so inexplicably, then just wait, I'll definitely ambush you on your way to school. In Japan, many people shared her thoughts. A large number of Hikaru no Go fans exploded with anger after seeing the updated plot in today's journal. They had originally been happily anticipating Sai's evaluation of Hikaru's The Hand of God, but who would have thought this would directly lead to Sai's disappearance? I can't accept this kind of plot. Essentially, what does Hikaru finding the hand of God have to do with Sai? Why would Sai react this way? This chapter's plot needs to be read in conjunction with the previous chapter. At the end of the last chapter, it said that Sai felt that heaven allowed him to live for 1,000 years just so Hikaru could see this game. This means that Sai might have sensed that the hand of God he sought didn't necessarily need to be played by him, as long as it arose because of him, he would have fulfilled his mission of existing for 1,000 years. That's why he reacted this way. But, does that really count as the hand of God? There's no standard answer to such a thing. The game record from the previous Hikaru no Go chapter is now circulating everywhere online, and many professional Go players believe it is indeed a wonderfully subtle move, one that even top players would praise. But many also believe that there's no such thing as the hand of God in the world and don't recognize that move. However, whether that move is recognized by everyone isn't important, what's important is what Sai thinks. If he believes Hikaru's move is the hand of God, then if that belief collapses, there's nothing anyone can do. I don't care, I don't care. If Shirogane-sensei dares to make Sai disappear, I will definitely. Me too. I absolutely won't allow depressing plots in Hikaru no Go. Shirogane-sensei, I've supported all your works since your debut, and I've fought back fiercely against anyone who questioned you online. Don't let me down. I got into it through the TV drama, followed it all the way to the latest manga chapter, and watched the weekly anime too. I can only say that if Shirogane-sensei targets Sai, the popularity of this manga will definitely be greatly affected. Even if you don't think about the fans, at least consider the revenue from this manga. At least tens of millions a year, and after a long serialization, with collected editions and adaptations, there will be a long tail effect, and annual income exceeding 100 million won't be a problem. Please don't be stubborn. Is saying all this useful now? The Hikaru no Go manga in Hojimori Group has probably already submitted all the subsequent plot manuscripts, and the manga journals for the next 3 to 5 issues have probably already started printing. If Shirogane-sensei plans to make Sai disappear, then this matter is already decided. Not necessarily, popular manga have privileges. Even if Hikaru no Go wants to change the plot now, as long as Shirogane-sensei strongly insists, even if it's too late, at most it would just be a 2-week suspension of publication in the journal. Anyway, I'm putting it out there, if Sai disappears, I will definitely stop being a fan. Rei spent the night reading the fans' comments on this chapter of Hikaru no Go online. Although he had somewhat anticipated it, seeing the overwhelming demands from fans on his account that he not let anything happen to Sai, Rei also sighed. One could only say that what happened in his previous life was repeating itself in this life. After the serialization of Hikaru no Go, Sai remained the most popular character, and fans still reacted strongly to the plot hinting at Sai's imminent disappearance. But some things are unavoidable. Some manga can be adjusted in certain details to avoid regrets. But some manga cannot. I can only grit my teeth and do it. Rei looked back at the stack of manga manuscripts in his living room. It was the script for the chapter where Sai disappears. Previously, Rei had only given the storyboard for this chapter to Misaki, and tomorrow, Misaki would personally come to collect this manga manuscript to submit it to Hojimori Group for printing and serialization, and then, in 3 weeks, with the serialization of Dream Comic, it would appear before all the Hikaru no Go fans. Rei let out a long breath. Since he had already decided to draw it this way, he wouldn't dwell on it anymore. Rei was very clear about which details of the work Hikaru no Go he could change, and which parts he absolutely could not change. It would be easy to simply follow his own wishes and those of a group of fans in Japan and force Sai to stay by Hikaru's side forever, but then what? Where could the plot of Hikaru no Go go? Would Sai really guide Hikaru in Go for a lifetime, and then one day Sai would play against Hikaru, his Go skill would be surpassed by Hikaru, and he would never be able to win against Hikaru again, and finally, Sai would witness Hikaru's death and be alone once more? For Rei, such an ending was even more tragic than Sai's disappearance. At this moment, Mayu sent Rei a text message that evening. After this week's Hikaru no Go serialization, you don't need to pay attention to the fan comments online. Don't be intimidated by the fans. You must withstand the pressure and stick to your ideas. I support you. Was she still worried that he would be flustered by the fans' comments online? Rei smiled slightly after seeing her text message. Don't worry about me. Wait for the good news about Hikaru no Go tomorrow. Tomorrow, Hikaru no Go's ranking should top the Hojimori Comic Journal. Rei typed out a message with flying fingers, paused for a moment, and then pressed send. Miyu, lying on her bed at home, saw the message from Rei and her expression suddenly became a little blank. Rei is right. Hikaru no Go has a good chance of topping Dream Comic. Why am I worrying about him? I should be worrying about myself. Miyu sighed. Her work, Sakura Rain, had officially concluded 2 weeks prior. It had been serialized for a year, topping the Amatsukichi journal 7 times. Currently, the average sales of its collected editions were just over 2 million, and counting royalties this year, her income was just over 10 million. During the serialization of Sakura Rain, she also encountered 2 opportunities to submit to Dream Comic, and she worked hard to submit the beginnings of 2 mangas she had created in her spare time, but without a doubt, they were directly rejected at the serialization meeting. Now that Sakura Rain had concluded, her primary task as a high school senior was to prepare for the college entrance examination. But honestly, she wasn't interested in her college entrance examination results. Rei has already become such a famous manga artist. When will I be able to create an excellent manga like Hikaru no Go? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or, never in my lifetime. Miyu looked at the half-finished new manga manuscript on her desk in her room, her self-confidence growing weaker. She typed a message in reply to Rei, but after a moment's hesitation, she deleted what she had just written. She simply replied, "Good luck, Rei." But soon, Miyu also received a reply on her phone. "You too, good luck. There are still 8 months until university in September. Let's both work hard and see if we can get our new manga works serialized in Dream Comic before university." Miyu looked at Rei's reply with a complex expression, then let out a long sigh after a while. She looked at the new manga manuscript on her desk, and despite a myriad of reluctance and an attack of laziness, she still got up and walked towards the desk. Other manga artists might not know, but how could Miyu not know? Rei wasn't planning to serialize Hikaru no Go for much longer. If Hikaru no Go concluded, she would definitely have to compete for the vacant serialization spot. She had to start preparing now. The next day, after Misaki dropped her sister Miyu off at the school gate, she secretly clicked her tongue at the banners held by the surging Hikaru no Go fans, similar to Absolutely No Offline for Psy. After her sister got out of the car, Misaki continued driving to the headquarters of Hojimori Group. On the first floor of the company's headquarters building, there were posters and life-size cutouts of the group's pillar manga artists from over the years, as well as numerous figurines. At the very end of these corporate culture exhibition posters, a giant poster of Hikaru no Go was also pasted on the corridor wall. Hikaru held a black Go stone, placing it down, and at the point of placement, a hand holding a folding fan extended from the darkness behind him. Although Misaki's expression remained unchanged, her heart was blooming with joy. The perception and status of the Hikaru no Go manga within the group could already be seen from the display of this poster. It was definitely a pillar-level manga. Upon arriving at the editorial department, everyone in the entire department looked sideways at Misaki today. Chapter 113, Reaching the Summit. SC's here. She's here. Congratulations, Misaki. Why? The ranking results aren't out yet, what's there to congratulate? In the office, the expressions of a group of editors subtly changed when they saw Misaki. While Rei was troubled about how to appease the fans' anger after Psy's disappearance in Hikaru no Go, these editors had spent the entire night researching the online reputation of Hikaru no Go. Don't let the fact that these Hikaru no Go fans had quite a bit of controversy over this week's updated plot of Hikaru no Go fool you. Would this really affect their voting for Hikaru no Go? Those who cursed the loudest were often die-hard Hikaru no Go fans, and when it came time to vote, they would never let their feelings for Shirogane affect their love for the manga. Last week, Source War Chronicle was almost surpassed by Hikaru no Go, not to mention this week, the controversial nature of Hikaru no Go's plot was even greater. Misaki arrived at her workstation, calmly organizing documents and work, but as time passed, her gaze increasingly focused on her computer's email inbox. And it wasn't just her, many editors were also repeatedly refreshing their inboxes. When the time finally reached 9:30 a.m., a new email appeared in her inbox. Misaki's expression became serious and focused. Her heart began to pound. Her fingers repeatedly tried to control the mouse to click the email but kept trembling. Misaki took a breath, and only when her breathing became steady did she decisively open the email. A line of information appeared before her eyes. 1. Hikaru no Go, total votes, 968,546 votes. 2. Source War Chronicle, total votes, 925,364 votes. 3. The Wanderer, total votes, 712,345 votes. She could see the information for all three works at a glance, but Misaki was not interested in looking at other works right now. Her gaze was fixed only on the text in the first line of the document. Hikaru no Go, first place. It had reached the summit. In Misaki's mind, the taut string snapped. She sat in her chair, gasping for air. First place. Misaki looked up, only to see that most of her colleagues in the entire editorial department were looking at her. Congratulations, Misaki! Congratulations, Misaki, on Hikaru no Go reaching the top. 960,000 votes, that's incredible. Hikaru no Go fans are too loyal. I didn't expect Source War Chronicle to lose to Hikaru no Go. Go Manga actually topped the Dream Comic Journal. It feels like a dream. Hikaru no Go, Shirogain. The world of Japan comics is going to be interesting from now on. The voices of those around her, some happy, some bitter, some dejected, came to her. Misaki didn't really hear any of it. She was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Oh, it reached the summit. At noon, Misaki called Rei, who was still at school, to tell him the news. Is that so? I understand. Rei, who was on the phone on the rooftop, said as he looked at the long line of Hikaru no Go fans at the school gate. Then, not long after, he hung up the phone, and only then did a surge of joy well up in his heart. It reached the summit. A year of effort finally brought Hikaru no Go to the top. And immediately following that, official statements were issued by the Hojimori Group. In this issue's popularity poll ranking for Hikaru no Go took first place with 960,000 votes, leading all opponents. After this news spread, Hikaru no Go fans began to furiously engage in online battles with Source War Chronicle fans. This week, do you understand? Who is the boss? Those who said Hikaru no Go could never surpass Source War Chronicle, come out. Didn't you say you'd eat your words if it did? Don't go back on your promise. I love watching Source War Chronicle fans get triggered. The more I watch, the more I want to laugh. Why are you hiding? Weren't Source War Chronicle fans shouting all sorts of things last week? Why are you all as quiet as if you are in a library today? Hehe, it's only been at the top for 1 week, consider it a comfort for you Hikaru no Go fans. Source War Chronicle has firmly held the top spot for nearly 40 months, just wait, next week Source War Chronicle will surpass it again. Haha, Source War Chronicle fans really make me laugh. No matter if Source War Chronicle returns to first place next week, the week after, or someday in the future. But at least today, right now, Source War Chronicle fans have to bow their heads when they see us Hikaru no Go fans. Source War Chronicle and Hikaru no Go fans fiercely debated on the journal, quickly spreading the news of Hikaru no Go's ascent to the top of the popularity rankings. Numerous media outlets began reporting on Hikaru no Go's summit-reaching feat. Hikaru no Go reaches the top, breaking the record for the youngest age to top the 6 major comic journals. Hikaru no Go surpasses Source War Chronicle, officially becoming the flagship manga of Dream Comic. Hojimori Group's official website collectively displays Hikaru no Go manga manuscripts and poster information, extensively reporting on Hikaru no Go's ascent to the top. The latest chapter of Hikaru no Go causes great controversy among fans, but also has a large number of fans unconditionally supporting the Hikaru no Go manga. Can the rise of the genius manga artist Shirogain be replicated? Is it possible for Hojimori Group's second genius, manga artist Saki, to become the second Shirogain? Shirogain's Hikaru no Go manga's immense popularity has led to a rapid increase in the IP value of his previous works, 5 cm per second and tonight. It is rumored that live-action film production companies are already in talks with Hojimori Group to adapt both tonight and 5 cm per second into films. Despite the controversial plot, Hikaru no Go's ranking reaches a new high. However, Hikaru no Go's first place might stop here. Once the manga removes the popular character Sai, this manga will completely lose its soul. A large volume of reports flooded the home pages of major manga websites. A group of media outlets fanatically reported on the relevant information. Originally, the alternation of old and new kings on a single comic journal, something that every one of the 6 major journals had experienced, would not cause too much of a stir. But this time, the creator of the top-ranked manga was Rei. When an excellent work is tied to the setting of a 17-year-old genius manga artist, it naturally generates immense buzz and attention, easily breaking out of the niche. Then came the classic segment. External media first praised, then criticized. Was Hikaru no Go's climb to the top a miracle or the result of hard work? Since it has already reached first place, for a manga, it can only go downhill from there. What about Hikaru no Go? A group of malicious media and anti-fans began spreading rumors online that Hikaru no Go's first place was likely just luck, and after the next week's serialization of Hikaru no Go's plot, perhaps everyone would see a scene of Hikaru no Go's ranking plummeting. Of course, below these comments, there were more online flame wars between Hikaru no Go fans and them. Rei had no interest in pondering the overwhelming online opinions. He was currently cooperating with the Hojimori Group in the development of various derivative products of his work, signing contract drafts. Especially among the numerous fake news circulating online, there were indeed some who knew insider information. Due to the surge in Hikaru no Go's popularity, Shirogen also became one of Japan's renowned manga artists. Shirogen's previous acclaimed manga, 5 cm per second and Tonight, also saw a surge in single-volume sales. Many Hikaru no Go drama and anime fans, after finishing the manga, unconsciously turned their attention to Shirogen's past works. It was not surprising that 5 cm per second and Tonight were targeted by Capital for live-action film adaptations. The two works were not famous before because Shirogen was not famous. Once Shirogen became famous, the manga's attention would be completely different. Time passed. Another week went by. Wednesday, the day Hikaru no Go fans had been waiting for all week, arrived again. Chapter 114, Discussion. Early in the morning, many Hikaru no Go fans, as usual, first argued with Source War Chronicle fans, and then, after some time, quickly went to nearby bookstores to buy the journal. The latest chapter of Dream Comic Journal regarding Hikaru no Go's plot was relatively calm. It introduced a character named Kurata who would have a minor role later on. Then came Toyokoyo's retirement. As the strongest Go player in Hikaru no Go, Toyokoyo's image in the manga was naturally one who kept his word. Even if it was just a verbal agreement with a new professional Go player, Hikaru, unheard by others, he strictly adhered to his promise after losing the game to Sai. After Toyokoyo's retirement in Hikaru no Go, among the new generation of Go players, CG Ogata was effectively the leader. Kurata, as a sub-top player, followed closely, while Hikaru and Akira were undeniably young genius Go players. In fact, the Hokuto Cup arc in the original manga had already set the stage for them, and the Hokuto arc also featured a genius Go player who had previously lost to Hikaru. Unfortunately, the original manga ended without even giving the conclusion of the Hokuto arc, which directly led to the Hikaru no Go anime production team in the previous life not producing an anime for the Hokuto arc. Moreover, Rei, in his previous life, could actually feel the foreshadowing laid by the original manga author, while reading the manga. For example, Sai and Ogata's game when he was drunk, Ogata, half drunk and half awake, suffered a crushing defeat to Sai, constantly saying that Hikaru was as strong as Sai. But upon waking, he knew nothing about the game. But, would he really know nothing? For a top-tier expert like Ogata, a game played while drunk could easily be recalled with some trigger, which would merely require the author to put pen to paper. It's even highly probable that later on, due to various reasons, such as the retired Toya Magen and others, Sai's true identity would be hinted towards Hikaru. There are simply too many instances in Hikaru no Go where early plot minor incidents become later foreshadowing. But unfortunately, it's unclear what considerations Hata had, as he ended Hikaru no Go at the Hokuto Cup arc, leaving many foreshadows unresolved. The Hokuto Cup manga plot, which was depicted for 2 entire volumes, didn't even have an ending. Its ending was strikingly similar to Slam Dunk's Shohoku reaching the Final Four. However, for fans reading the Hikaru no Go manga today, just like Rei in his previous life, they saw these plot foreshadows and assumed the manga would continue for a long time. It was laying the groundwork for future plot lines. In the middle part of this chapter, the perspective shifted to Hikaru, after joining the professional Go team, crushing his opponents on the playing field. Judging from this match, Hikaru's current strength was basically confirmed. He wasn't on par with top-tier players, but he was on the stronger side among players below the top tier. Many Hikaru no Go fans had originally watched this chapter with apprehension this week. They were worried that this chapter would feature Sai's disappearance, but unexpectedly, it was only Toyokoyo's retirement and Hikaru's match. And just as the fans breathed a huge sigh of relief. At the end of this chapter, the perspective returned to Hikaru and Sai. The two of them played Go as usual at night. Sai had no physical body and his identity could not be exposed, he could only play Go with Hikaru. But on this day, facing one of Hikaru's bad moves, he did not, as usual, show understanding, but instead directly and angrily started scolding him. What kind of move was that you just played? Playing such a terrible move. And you still dare to say how amazing you are. Hikaru, you will never be able to defeat me. Hikaru's expression was startled at the words, but he immediately became defiant. What did you say? I said, no matter how good you are, you can't possibly defeat me. On this day, seeing Sai's heartbroken, sorrowful eyes as he spoke these words in the manga. Many manga readers could feel Sai's inner unwillingness and envy. Was he envious that Hikaru could play that move, which is why he said things like you'll never be able to defeat me like a child. But the manga's narration provided Sai's true thoughts. I want to play so many games of Go. Yes, you are nowhere near as good as me right now. I need eternal time. Someone who can't even pick up a Go stone without me, dares to be so boastful. Hikaru immediately retorted angrily. But soon, he realized how serious and hurtful his words were. Hikaru immediately apologized, but Sai just turned his back and remained silent. Sai, with his head bowed, had eyes full of reluctance. The last page of this chapter ended with Hikaru suddenly having a whim to search for the blood-stained Go board in his grandfather's house where Sai had once resided. And this time, Hikaru found that the bloodstains on that blood-stained Go board were almost invisible, faint, and about to disappear. If the previous chapter had only made Hikaru no Go fans slightly suspicious, then this chapter was almost an explicit declaration. Sai's emotions, his inner monologue, why he was so abnormal. He knew he was leaving, he wanted to play a little more Go, to stay by Hikaru's side for another moment, he was unwilling. But, the bloodstains on the Go board were disappearing, and he, was also about to disappear. Everyone was happy while reading the first half of this manga chapter, but in the latter half, everyone couldn't help but tear up. On this day, the Hojimori Group's official website saw an unprecedented surge of posts from Hikaru no Go fans. No. Teacher Shirogane, what good does Sai's disappearance do you? Don't do this. It doesn't make sense. What does Hikaru finding the hand of God have to do with Sai? No. I'm going to cry. Teacher Shirogane, don't be stubborn. If you really make Sai disappear, you'll lose me as a fan. Why? I'm not exaggerating, at least 60% of Hikaru no Go fans follow the manga for Sai, right? What good does it do you to kill off Sai? Please, Teacher Shirogane, next week's plot, introduce a deus ex machina. Just let Hikaru meet a charlatan who can help Sai delay the symptoms of disappearance, okay? I can even accept that kind of plot. Ha ha ha, you Hikaru no Go fans are so pathetic. I told you long ago, Hikaru no Go is rubbish. It's obvious that the young author can't control the plot and has started drawing haphazardly. The death of the popular character Sai is just the beginning, later on, it might end badly, with the protagonist getting hit by a truck and dying. Get out, you Source War Chronicle fans, get out. Must Sai really die? Rationally speaking, Sai's role in the manga right now is a side effect. He has fulfilled his greatest mission, introducing Hikaru to the path of a professional Go player. Who wants to see Hikaru? Everyone wants to see Sai. Hikaru is just a mischievous troublemaker. Teacher Shirogane, whatever you do, don't kill off Sai. I repeat, don't kill off Sai. Otherwise, I'll be angry. Brothers, let's go complain about Teacher Shirogane on the Hojimori Group's official website. How about we don't vote for Hikaru no Go this week? How can we not vote for Hikaru no Go? Hikaru no Go finally reached the top spot. If we don't vote for Hikaru no Go, do you want to see those arrogant faces of the Source War Chronicle fans again? If Hikaru no Go's ranking drops to second place again, it won't be Teacher Shirogane's face that's lost, it's our Hikaru no Go fans' face. Everyone, don't worry, this is all a smokescreen. How could Sai disappear? Any normal person with a bit of common sense should understand what Sai's disappearance means for this manga. Unless Teacher Shirogane plans to finish Hikaru no Go and retire from the manga industry, otherwise he should know that if Sai exits in this way, Hikaru no Go fans will never read his fourth manga again. What if Teacher Shirogane creates a new work that's even more interesting than Hikaru no Go? Ha ha ha. What are you thinking? In the history of the Japan's manga industry, there are only a handful of people who have continuously created two manga with average sales of over 10 million volumes. Most famous manga artists only have one famous work in their lifetime. More amazing than Hikaru no Go? You really think highly of that kid named Shiro Gain? From a historical perspective, his next manga will most likely flop. Oh, no, if he really insists on making Hikaru no Go's popular character go offline, then in fact, Hikaru no Go itself will also flop. All day Wednesday, Hikaru no Go fans, anti-fans, onlookers, and drama and anime fans who heard the news were all embroiled in arguments. As for Rei, the person involved, he noticed something was wrong in the afternoon and, after seeing more and more Hikaru no Go fans gathering outside the school, he temporarily took leave and left school first. Fortunately, this week is the last week of the first semester of senior year. What a lifesaver. Hiding at home, Rei took a sip of cola and checked the Hikaru no Go fan comments online. He was ready to play dead for a while. After the next week's plot was released, he would definitely be criticized all over the internet. But Rei also understood that as time went on, after the anger of Hikaru no Go fans subsided, Hikaru no Go would grow in their hearts and eventually become a classic. However, at this stage, Rei still had to avoid the wrath of angry fans. There were quite a few extreme manga fans who threatened online to physically harm Rei if Sai died, but it was highly unlikely that anyone would actually act on it. But Rei wouldn't gamble on such a thing. From next week until the entire winter break, he would play dead, except for appearing at the televised awards ceremony. Chapter 115, Disappearance. The next day, at the Hoshimori Group editorial department, Misaki once again felt the strange, scrutinizing gazes of her colleagues. If the previous success of Hikaru no Go, which had reached the top spot, had caused envy and even jealousy toward her as a young editor, then now those same people were clearly gloating. Any normal person could understand the importance of Sai's character in the manga Hikaru no Go. Even if Sai's role were to diminish in the later stages, with the story focusing on Hikaru's growth, they could have simply kept him by Hikaru's side as a symbolic presence, a mascot, even. Why make him disappear? Wasn't this absurd? It was one thing for a young manga artist to be naive and indulge in artistic impulses. But for an editor to be unable to rein in such outrageous ideas from her assigned artist, and to allow Hikaru no Go, the top-ranked manga in Dream Comic, to move in this direction, this already spoke to Misaki's inadequacy as an editor. She's just a mediocre editor who got by on luck. Misaki could more or less read those thoughts in their eyes, but she couldn't be bothered to refute them. Of course she relied on luck. Without luck, could she really have met a genius like Rei? And wasn't luck itself a form of strength? A billionaire who became rich by winning the lottery was still more successful than a multimillionaire who struggled their entire life. Those who failed to understand that, who despised opportunity and luck, insisting only on grinding their way upward through effort alone, were simply naive. However, setting luck aside, Misaki believed the greatest difference between herself and the other editors in the department was that she dared to take risks. Their ingrained mindset was that a manga artist would likely produce only one massively popular work in their lifetime, and once such a work appeared, its commercial value should be exploited to the utmost. But Misaki didn't see things that way. While Hikaru no Go was indeed exceptional, Rei's future potential far exceeded the value of Hikaru no Go itself. This manga ending here might very well signal the early arrival of Rei's next classic masterpiece. Sitting at her desk and waiting for the release of the latest ranking results, Misaki gradually steadied her emotions. At 9:30 a.m., as usual, the editors in the department immediately opened the email the moment it arrived. And the rankings for this issue disappointed many of them. Hikaru no Go, total votes, 943,215. Source War Chronicle, total votes, 895,321. Although Hikaru no Go's vote count had declined compared to the previous week, the same was true for its biggest competitor. As a result, Hikaru no Go remained in first place, with Source War Chronicle still second. 2 consecutive weeks at number 1. Misaki clenched her fists unconsciously. Hikaru no Go would not run for much longer, so it was impossible for it to replicate Source War Chronicle's 3-year reign at the top. In fact, once Hikaru no Go concluded, Source War Chronicle would inevitably reclaim the throne. However, at least while Hikaru no Go was still being serialized, Misaki absolutely did not want to see it overtaken. Due to its genre, Hikaru no Go's commercial value naturally fell short of long-running battle shonen like Source War Chronicle. But if Hikaru no Go could maintain first place until its final chapter, it would set an unprecedented record. That alone would silence the critics. Those same people loved claiming online that Hikaru no Go's recent plot developments proved REI had run out of ideas. Then let them witness how an exhausted REI would bring Hikaru no Go to its conclusion. In the days that followed, after manga readers finished venting their outrage, it was the turn of TV drama and anime fans to erupt. Still in the early stages of the story, these viewers saw manga fans spreading news online about Sai's eventual disappearance, and their world collapsed. Sai, could he really disappear? If Hikaru no Go lost its ghost, would people really just watch characters play Go? Don't be ridiculous, Shirogane-sensei. Over the past few days, fans of Hikaru no Go's anime, manga, and live-action adaptation stopped arguing about adaptation quality altogether. They united, directing their anger squarely at Shirogane. At the same time, numerous manga media outlets and critics jumped on the trend, heavily criticizing the fatal flaw of Sai's impending disappearance in Hikaru no Go's latest plot. At this moment, nearly everyone in the manga industry, and countless readers across Japan, were fixated on the newest chapter of Hikaru no Go, the most popular manga in Dream Comic. Aside from the editor-in-chief of Hojimori Group and a handful of senior executives, very few people knew that Hikaru no Go was already approaching its end. Everyone was wondering whether there was some hidden twist behind the recent controversy. Soon, late January arrived, and with it came another Wednesday. This week's cover of Dream Comic underwent a drastic stylistic shift once again. The entire cover featured only a single character. Sai. Dressed in white, he gazed upward at the light pouring down upon him, his expression a mixture of reluctance and relief. The color page illustration, personally drawn by REI, was exquisitely detailed. The moment most fans saw the cover, a sharp pang struck their hearts. Just the image alone carried an overwhelming sense of sorrow. Mizuki stood in front of the bookshelf, staring at the cover for a long time before finally reaching out, picking up the journal, and walking toward the cashier. After returning home, she held the journal in her hands and spent nearly half a minute bracing herself mentally before tearing open the plastic seal and flipping to the serialization of Hikaru no Go. The story continued directly from the previous week. When Sai saw the bloodstains on the Go board fading away, his expression instantly turned flustered. But Hikaru noticed nothing. He even prepared to play Go with his grandfather, wagering 1,000 yen on the match. Standing beside him, Sai hurriedly called out. Hikaru, let's go back now. Play Go with me. You can play Go with Grandpa anytime. Sai's expression was anxious, almost desperate. Just reading this line, the heavy stone that had been weighing on Mizuki's heart for an entire week finally crashed down. No. Shirogane-sensei. What are you talking about? Hikaru said impatiently. You and I can play Go anytime. It's rare for me to see Grandpa, of course I want to play with him. Ignoring Sai completely, Hikaru walked toward his grandfather. Hikaru. I might disappear very soon. Mizuki's eyes immediately reddened. You've been alive for 1,000 years, how could you just disappear? Hikaru scoffed. You're just saying this to make me pity you so I'll indulge you, right? Sai, you've been way too willful lately. Mizuki clenched her fists in anger. Hikaru, you brat. You've been reading Hikaru no Go for a whole year, 3 years have passed in the story, and you're still this immature? How can you say something like that? Sai fell silent and simply followed behind Hikaru. Hikaru doesn't understand. Sai whispered to himself. The story then shifted. Hikaru received an invitation to serve as a guidance opponent at a Go event, where he once again encountered CG Ogata. Mizuki quickly turned the page. The appearance of this segment slightly eased the suffocating sorrow from earlier. In the drunken match, Sai utterly crushed CG Ogata, and Hikaru took the opportunity to slip away unnoticed. After the event, Sai followed behind Hikaru, and his inner monologue surfaced once more. Why isn't it me? Why does only Hikaru have a future, while I must disappear? Sai's eyes grew increasingly sorrowful. Tears welled up in Mizuki's eyes. She had a dreadful premonition, once the story reached this point, it was like a river flowing east. How could it ever be turned back? She cursed Shirogane furiously in her heart, yet she couldn't bear to look away from the page for even a second. Sai watched Hikaru walking ahead, bathed in light. I can't help but envy the future Hikaru possesses. And I don't want to be separated from him. On the black and white page, delicate brush strokes depicted tiny white specks of light beginning to rise from Sai's body, slowly dispersing. I don't want to be separated from him. I really don't want to. Tears dropped onto the page as Mizuki's nose burned painfully. Upon realizing he was about to disappear, Sai wasn't thinking about the hand of God at all, he simply didn't want to leave Hikaru. Later that night, back at home, Hikaru felt drowsy in the warm evening breeze. At Sai's insistence, he forced himself to stay awake and began a new game of Go with him. With heavy-lidded eyes, Hikaru stared at the board, placed a stone, then waited for the position indicated by Sai's folding fan, helping him set down another piece. Half asleep, Hikaru failed to notice that Sai, sitting across from him, was gazing at him intently, while more and more white specks of light rose silently from his body. On the path toward the hand of God, my role is complete. Sai closed his eyes, then suddenly opened them again. As if remembering something, he leaned forward and called out softly. Hikaru! Hikaru, can you hear my voice? But Hikaru, sitting opposite him, was already on the verge of sleep, propping his chin up with one hand. Look at him! Are you even human? Hikaru! Your best friend is about to disappear. Right in front of you. And yet, in the final game of his life with you, why are you so careless? Mizuki clutched the manga journal tightly, stood up from her chair, and completely lost control. Tears and snot streamed down her face together as her emotions overflowed. Hikaru, can you hear me? I am very happy. Sai's words echoed on the page. Mizuki froze. Sai's final words to Hikaru were that he was happy. Happy, to be with Hikaru. And it was precisely because of that happiness that he was unwilling to leave. The manga panel slowly pulled back. Hikaru, propping his cheek with one hand, was still waiting patiently for Sai to make his move. But the figure sitting opposite him, the last trace of Sai, quietly dissolved into countless specks of white light, scattering and fading into the human world. Hey, it's your turn. After an unknown amount of time, Hikaru stirred from his doze and spoke, staring at the Go board where the folding fan had never appeared. Hey, Sai. I said it's your turn. Sai. Hikaru suddenly looked up. But in front of him was nothing. Sai's figure had vanished without a trace. A gentle breeze drifted into the room, carrying with it a single petal that floated down and landed softly on the Go board. Mizuki turned the page with trembling hands, only to see the final page of the chapter. The chapter title was written there, stark and merciless. Farewell, Hikaru. Mizuki finally broke. She hugged the manga journal tightly to her chest and sobbed aloud. Is this something a human could write? Shirogane, you're not human. I will never forgive you in this life. I'll never read your works again. Just you wait, I'm unfollowing you today. This manga, Hikaru no Go, had only one moment like this. But that single, devastating moment was enough to be remembered by fans for 10 years. Mizuki was already considered relatively composed. Many other Hikaru no Go readers had collapsed into tears halfway through the chapter. Even professionals in the Japan's manga industry were left utterly stunned. Everyone had assumed that Shirogane was merely setting up a smokescreen, a deliberate controversy to boost buzz and discussion. So, you were serious? This was a manga ranked among the top 10 in popularity nationwide. Even though its average volume sales weren't yet explosive due to its short serialization period, surpassing 10 million copies was only a matter of time. And this is how you chose to write it. Chapter 116, The Angry Readers. Sai disappeared. The news spread like wildfire through the Hikaru no Go fanbase. Not only on the Hojimori Group's official website, viewers of the currently airing second season of the Hikaru no Go TV drama and anime audiences also learned about the latest manga developments through countless channels. Fans who had already read the manga were devastated. Manga readers still stuck working overtime, who hadn't yet had the chance to buy the magazine, were anxious and tormented. And for TV drama and anime fans, their world collapsed. The three factions converged on the Hojimori Group's official website, major manga forums, and the comment section of REI's creator account. Under normal circumstances, Hikaru no Go wouldn't have caused such a massive stir in Japan's media sphere. But today was different. The entire hot search ecosystem was flooded by the frenzied reactions of these three waves of fans. The phrase "Sai is dead" surged into the top 5 trending searches across major search engines. While many passers-by were still wondering who Sai even was, and why his death could dominate the hot searches, Rei's comment section was already completely overwhelmed. "You scoundrel, where are you right now? Damn it, he's on vacation now, we can't even ambush him at school. Why did you make Sai disappear? What did he ever do to you? What the hell do you understand about Hikaru no Go? If you can't control the later plot, hand over the pen. I could draw with my feet and make this chapter 10 million times better than yours. I'm crying myself to death." Sai's last words to Hikaru were that he was very happy. He was gentle until the very end. That's why he was so sulky in the previous chapters. Sai's greatest wish was to pursue the hand of God, but after Hikaru played it, he probably realized, what he really wanted was to stay by Hikaru's side and watch him grow stronger. And yet this bastard couldn't even grant Sai that simple wish. Is he really 17? Why does his heart feel colder than stone, without a shred of youthful empathy? Come to think of it, 5 centimeters per second was a tragedy. Tonight also ended with the male lead dying. Now Hikaru no Go kills off Sai. Where is this manga even going? Is it heading toward a bad ending? It's already a bad ending. Sai is gone, what's the point of continuing? Hikaru no Go has lost its soul. Sai is gone. Originally, the manga had 2 core threads, Sai's pursuit of the hand of God and Hikaru's growth. Now only Hikaru's growth remains, and Hikaru is already an unlikable protagonist. How can this manga survive? Doesn't matter. Sai is gone. I don't feel like maintaining the ranking anymore. I'm not voting this week. I don't believe Shirogane would really let Sai disappear like this. Could this be another smokescreen? Maybe Hikaru will find a way to bring Sai back in a few chapters. Hey, Sai only turned into particles of light. No one actually said that turning into light equals death, right? As long as Shirogane wants it to work, what kind of plot can't he force to work? Wait, what if Sai didn't disappear at all? What do you mean? Remember the first chapter? Both Akari and Hikaru saw the Go board, but only Hikaru could see the bloodstains. Akari couldn't. That means the bloodstains determine whether someone can see Sai. Are you saying Sai isn't dead, Hikaru just can't see him anymore? Maybe Sai is still by his side, but they can never communicate again. No, this is even more painful. That would mean Sai stays with Hikaru for his entire life, while Hikaru can never respond. Please, Teacher Shirogane, look at public opinion. As long as you restore Sai in the next chapter, Hikaru no Go will stay number 1 on Dream Comic. All day long, Hikaru no Go related topics dominated the trending sections of major search engines. Naturally, Japan's manga review media seized upon this explosive subject, publishing article after article. A genius manga artist runs out of ideas, Shirogane disastrous blunders in the latest Hikaru no Go chapter. A disaster-level narrative collapse, how a genius author killed his manga's most beloved character. Meticulous storytelling, or arrogance. Analyzing Hikaru no Go's future after Sai's disappearance. A manga destined for history falls from grace in 1 week. The latest chapter may be the worst manga chapter of the past decade. Brilliance or fatal mistake? The answer to Sai's disappearance may emerge in the coming weeks. Only a 17-year-old dares to write such a story. While the internet condemns Sai's disappearance as a blunder, the author claims it's a deliberate rejection of utilitarian, fan-pleasing storytelling. A character appears when needed and exits when needed. Sai has already guided Hikaru onto the path of Go, but for Hikaru to become truly great, he must walk it alone. The frenzied backlash from fans and the mixed reactions from the media did not affect the operations of the Hojimori Group editorial department the following day. Although many colleagues still looked at Misaki with barely concealed schadenfreude, the reality was that Hikaru no Go's performance did not unfold the way they had expected. This week, Hikaru no Go once again topped the magazine rankings with 923,564 fan votes. Meanwhile, Source War Chronicle, which ranked second, continued its downward trend, recording 875,628 votes. The reason was simple. In the previous 2 weeks, Source War Chronicle had experienced a temporary surge because its fans felt threatened by Hikaru no Go. That sense of crisis had driven its voter count past 900,000. But once Hikaru no Go officially surpassed it, much of that tension dissipated. Readers without strong voting habits returned to quietly following the manga without participating in polls, causing Source War Chronicle's numbers to fall back to their usual level. Hikaru no Go, however, was a different case. Fans were cursing Rei, but very few were actually criticizing Hikaru no Go itself as a poor work or accusing it of having a bad ending. Even with Sai's disappearance, Hikaru no Go was still far from a bad ending, because the undeniable core of the manga was Hikaru himself. Readers directed their anger at the creator, Shirogane, but after venting their frustration, their support for the manga hardly declined. Those who voted continued to vote. Others, rather than raging online, simply waited, hoping Shirogane would somehow mend the plot and bring Sai back. This was the fundamental difference between a masterpiece manga and an ordinary popular one. The loyalty and tolerance of their readership were entirely different. When a masterpiece delivers an uncomfortable plot turn, readers are willing to endure it, trusting that the author will eventually bring the story full circle. But for an average hit manga, even a mildly displeasing development can drive readers away. After all, the market is flooded with alternatives. Why should anyone indulge you? Despite the intense controversy, the online outcry, and the wave of mocking media coverage the day before, Hikaru no Go still claimed first place this week. The editors of the Hojimori group couldn't help but question their own judgment. Where were those fans who swore they wouldn't vote anymore? Where were the readers who declared they would abandon the manga altogether? Could it be that everyone was simply bluffing, trying to scare Shirogane into changing the plot? How could a manga so fiercely criticized still surpass 900,000 votes and remain at the top? First place, again. Listening to Misaki relay the results over the phone, Rei let out a long breath. He glanced at the half-finished manuscript on his desk and spoke quietly. But fans' patience will fade eventually. After Sai's disappearance, their biggest expectation is no longer the story itself, it's when Sai will come back. Just like Goku's countless deaths in Dragon Ball in his previous life, readers no longer reacted to those moments with shock, but with a single question: how will he be revived this time? Many Hikaru no Go fans were now thinking the same way. Once fans are absolutely certain that Sai won't return, Rei continued, the manga's popularity will drop very quickly. Since you understand that, Misaki couldn't help replying, you shouldn't have let Sai disappear in the first place. I know his disappearance will cause a significant drop in popularity, Rei said calmly. But I also know that if Sai had stayed by Hikaru's side forever, constantly helping him improve, his character would never achieve true sublimation. He would become nothing more than a tool, a go-playing machine. And then Hikaru no Go would never become a classic. Fluctuations in popularity are temporary, Rei added with a faint smile. Even 20 years later, people still remembered Hikaru no Go in my previous life. That's what truly matters. That's proof the manga touched people's hearts. You'll be 18 in a few months, Misaki finally said. You'll be an adult soon. I trust your judgment. Then she added dryly, one last piece of advice: wear a mask if you go out during winter break. If you get recognized and beaten up by extreme fans and miss a manuscript deadline, I'll be the one in trouble. Understood, Rei replied, then paused. Oh, Editor Misaki, Hikaru no Go will most likely conclude within 2 to 3 months. You and the group should prepare yourselves mentally. Understood. Chapter 117, I won't play Go anymore. Affected by the latest chapter of Hikaru no Go, the 9th episode of the second season of the TV drama, which aired on Friday, set a new viewership record of 3.32%, once again ranking first among all TV series that premiered this quarter. As for the anime adaptation, it continued to perform strongly as well and currently ranked among the top 3 in viewership for new anime series this season. After several days, the intense fervor surrounding Sai's disappearance in Hikaru no Go gradually subsided. As expected, the newest chapter of the manga was serialized on schedule the following Wednesday. This week's chapter contained relatively little forward movement in the main plot. Instead, it devoted almost the entire chapter to Hikaru coming to terms with Sai's disappearance. At first, Hikaru believed that Sai was merely hiding somewhere. Then, little by little, reality set in. After searching everywhere and finding no trace of him, Hikaru finally accepted that Sai would not return. The realization triggered a complete emotional collapse. Overwhelmed by guilt, Hikaru blamed himself deeply. Sai had only ever wanted to play Go, yet Hikaru had spoken so harshly to him. Hikaru became convinced that Sai's disappearance was the result of his own selfishness. This guilt led him to a desperate and irrational thought. If giving up Go could bring Sai back, then he would do it. Sai's disappearance alone had already devastated fans the previous week. This chapter, depicting Hikaru breaking down in grief, further intensified their emotions. Once again, Hikaru no Go fans across the internet erupted. For an entire day, Shirogane was verbally attacked without pause. And yet, despite the backlash, Hikaru no Go still ranked first in the magazine's popularity poll, recording over 910,000 votes. By February, the National Annual Manga Awards ceremony, for which REI had received a nomination invitation, was scheduled to take place in just 2 days. Even before the ceremony began, live broadcast viewership had already surged, driven by the massive attention from Hikaru no Go fans. During winter break, REI had remained almost completely reclusive, while the resentment and emotions of fans continued to ferment online. Everyone was eagerly anticipating Hikaru no Go winning Best Manga of the Year. At the same time, many wondered if Hikaru no Go failed to win the top prize, would the camera capture even a fleeting look of regret on REI's face? Reality offered no such drama. Among all newly serialized manga that year, Hikaru no Go was overwhelming. It had ranked first in the Dream Comic Journal for 5 consecutive weeks. By the day of the awards ceremony, its average volume sales had reached 9.81 million copies. Its online ratings, measured prior to the ceremony, were the highest among all currently serialized manga in Dream Comic. Aside from its comparatively lower commercial ceiling due to genre limitations, Hikaru no Go was regarded as an epic-level work by nearly every metric. When compared to other new manga released that year across different journals, it was a complete dominance. At the awards ceremony, REI, still a few months shy of 18, stood on stage. The host asked the question everyone wanted answered. Will we ever see Sai again? REI did not evade the question. Facing the camera, he answered calmly. Of course. How could Sai truly disappear? That single, ambiguous sentence instantly ignited the emotions of Hikaru no Go fans across the country. Though REI revealed nothing concrete, anticipation soared. What fans did not yet understand was the true meaning behind his words, a meaning that would only be revealed through later developments in the story. After Hikaru no Go won Best Manga of the Year, REI immediately buried himself in work. He stopped paying attention to online criticism regarding Sai's disappearance. As for popularity, the manga stabilized at around 900,000 votes per week, continuing to hold first place in the journal and maintaining a lead of tens of thousands over Source War Chronicle. The collapse that many outsiders had predicted never happened. Even more strikingly, the manga's focus gradually shifted away from Go itself. Instead, it turned inward, centering on Hikaru's emotional journey. After Sai vanished, Hikaru began to despise himself even more deeply. He reflected obsessively on his past actions, convinced that he had driven Sai away. Eventually, he reached a painful resolution. I won't play Go anymore. This was Hikaru's final decision. He began skipping Go League team matches. He ignored all professional Go activities. Once celebrated as a prodigy, Hikaru returned to a completely ordinary school life, steadfastly refusing to touch Go. Yet his former Go club friends continued playing. Though Hikaru had left the Go club to become a professional, they remained, challenging Kyo Middle School year after year in inter-school competitions. Hikaru was trapped. Tormented by Sai's disappearance. Bound by his vow to abandon Go. And yet his eyes were still drawn unconsciously to the light surrounding those who truly loved the game. If I play Go again, Sai will never come back. Even now, Hikaru did not understand why Sai had disappeared. Still clinging to his misunderstanding, he stubbornly believed that Sai had left because of his own selfish refusal to let him play. How could Sai completely disappear? The comment section on REI's creator account had also begun to calm down. So, when will Sai return? He'll come back, right, teacher Shirogane? If Sai comes back, can Hikaru and Sai play alternately? They both love Go. There's no need for one to play while the other can't. Exactly. We used to criticize Hikaru for being selfish, saying he never let Sai play. But we were never extreme enough to say Hikaru shouldn't play either. This chapter made me cry. Hikaru loves Go just as much as Sai does. The school Go club really feels like Hikaru's pure sanctuary. Whenever he's in emotional turmoil, returning there always seems to heal him a little. When Hikaru watches the Go club members play against Kyo Middle School, does he remember how he and Sai sneaked in as elementary school kids and almost became champions? I vote for Hikaru no Go every week. Please, teacher Shirogane, let Sai come back. Stop tormenting us. Hikaru has already missed several Go League matches without explanation. If this continues, he'll be expelled from the team, and no professional Go group will want him. It's already the 4th week since Sai disappeared. I really miss him. Teacher Shirogane, please stop making us suffer. Draw something happy next week. Please. At home, Misaki was carefully reviewing the final storyboard of Hikaru no Go, while Rei scrolled through the comments left by fans on his account. Sigh. Rei let out a long breath. Although the original plot had always been planned this way, imagining how many Psy fans would be heartbroken when the next chapter was released still made him hesitate. So, this is the final chapter of Hikaru no Go. Misaki neatly stacked the storyboards, closed her eyes, and quietly absorbed the emotions the ending conveyed. Rei, you truly are a manga genius, she said after a long pause. You're not blaming me this time? Rei asked, surprised. From the moment Sai disappeared until now, almost a month has passed. Yet I haven't seen a single fan say that Hikaru no Go itself is bad, Misaki replied softly. They only criticized you, the author. That's when I understood that Sai's disappearance was absolutely necessary and meaningful. The fans couldn't accept it emotionally, but that doesn't mean they failed to understand its importance. Sai's disappearance is the key turning point for Hikaru's growth, she continued. It's what allows him to transform from a mischievous child into a mature Go player. Someone who no longer relies on Sai standing behind him, but who can walk forward on his own and reach the path of light Sai once pursued. And for the past 3 weeks, you've been depicting Hikaru's spiritual transformation in depth, haven't you? Rei smiled faintly and changed the subject. After next week's chapter, where Hikaru resolves his inner conflict through Isumi's return and their match, the main story of Hikaru no Go will conclude. Later on, I might draw some extra stories. Extra stories. For example, after the ending, Hikaru and Akira could team up to face young Go players from Korea and China in the Hokkaido Cup. Or perhaps... Rei paused, thinking. In the original manga, there had been storylines such as Hikaru miraculously entering the Go Saint title challenge as a first Dan player and defeating Kawabara, the Honenbo title holder, by 1.5 points. However, after Sai's disappearance, many of those later arcs lacked emotional weight and immersion. Since the original manga never had a definitive ending, and its popularity gradually declined after Sai vanished, Rei had no intention of reproducing those developments. Instead, he planned to follow the approach taken by the anime production team in his previous life and end Hikaru no Go at its most unforgettable point, the moment Sai dissipated. An open ending should remain open at the most emotionally powerful moment, not after the sorrow has faded and readers have already shifted their focus elsewhere. Ending it later would only dilute its impact. That would be a failed ending. So these extras would be released as separate volumes? Misaki asked. That's right, Rei replied. I want to preserve the integrity of the main story. I'll report this to the company, Misaki nodded. But since you'll have time afterward, you should also start thinking about your next work. Try to begin a new manga within 2 years after Hikaru no Go concludes. 2 years? Rei asked, startled. I know it's demanding, but I hope you'll push yourself, Misaki said seriously. Don't disappear from the industry for 3 to 5 years. You became a first-tier manga artist too quickly. Less than 2 years since your debut. If you stay silent for too long after Hikaru no Go ends. She looked directly at him. Your fans will forget you. Chapter 118, Holiday. 2 years. 2 years was more than enough time for Rei to complete a manga. Unexpectedly, Misaki's request was for him to release a new work within 2 years. Life was short, barely 100 years at most. Even if Rei worked himself to the bone every single day, he might not be able to bring even 1/10 of the masterpieces from his previous life into this world. How could he afford to waste 2 entire years? Still, Rei wasn't prepared to say much at the moment. After all, properly completing Hikaru no Go was the most important thing right now. By mid-February, the 9th volume of Hikaru no Go was rushed out just before the new year. Because each chapter of Rei's manga was at least 40 pages long, every collected volume contained only 3 to 4 chapters. As a result, the complete Hikaru no Go series would likely end at 12 or 13 volumes. Now, it had already reached volume 9. Across the entire series, average sales per volume were rapidly approaching 9 million copies. If momentum held, it was very possible that Hikaru no Go would achieve an average of 10 million copies per volume before serialization ended. No matter how harshly fans criticized Shirogane for Sai's death, the influential figures within the manga industry had already come to a clear conclusion. The long-term impact on Hikaru no Go was inevitable. But in the short term, the effect was minimal. Current fans still loved the manga and continued to hope for a future plotline in which Sai would somehow return. Those who envied or resented Shirogane, who eagerly awaited Hikaru no Go's collapse, would have to wait until fan patience truly ran out. As for Shirogane being flamed online, what did it matter? It didn't change the fact that on the day the 9th collected volume of Hikaru no Go was released, long lines once again formed outside bookstores across the country. Then came the new year. Because the collected editions of Hikaru no Go had sold over 70 million copies nationwide, REI received enormous royalties from Hojimori Group. As of now, pre-tax earnings from collected editions alone exceeded 70 million in local currency. After tax, nearly 40 million still remained in REI's hands. Adding income from animation adaptations, live-action drama adaptations, copyright licensing, and merchandise revenue sharing, REI's total earnings from Hikaru no Go over a single year approached 50 million. This was despite the fact that the subject matter of Hikaru no Go inherently limited its commercial ceiling. For REI, that was more than enough. He spent New Year's Eve alone, receiving holiday greetings from the two Yuki Shiro sisters, Misaki and Mayu, as well as from his homeroom teacher, his good friend Hana and Yui. During the New Year period, Dream Comic did not suspend publication and continued its weekly serialization. After Sai's disappearance and Hikaru's decision to abandon Go, the plot of Hikaru no Go shifted its focus to Izumi. In the original manga, Izumi traveled to China, suffered defeat at the hands of young prodigies, and later returned to Japan to earn his professional rank. At the same time, the story intercut with Hikaru's increasingly listless school life after giving up professional Go and withdrawing from competition. The narrative unfolded along two parallel tracks, Izumi's repeated defeats abroad, and Hikaru's absence from matches, which deeply disappointed many professional Go players. The atmosphere of the manga grew heavy and oppressive. Even so, Hikaru no Go remained ranked first in Dream Comics' popularity poll. Its weekly vote count gradually declined from a peak of 960,000 to around 890,000 in the most recent issue, but its position at the top remained unshaken. Meanwhile, Source War Chronicle, ranked second, experienced a surge during the Spring Festival thanks to a climactic storyline, pushing its vote count up to 870,000. For 2 consecutive weeks, fans of Hikaru no Go and Source War Chronicle reignited their arguments. This is Hikaru no Go's real strength. Honestly, being number 1 for just 2 months isn't that impressive. Exactly. Source War Chronicle held first place for 3 years, and its fans weren't nearly as arrogant as Hikaru no Go fans are now. Look at this mess. Shirogane made a massive mistake killing off a popular character. I'm betting this manga crashes within a month, and Source War Chronicle takes back first place. But Source War Chronicle never once exceeded Hikaru no Go's peak of 960,000 votes during those 3 years. Save it. I can't stop laughing. Teacher Layton is Hojimori Group's true #1 manga artist. That Shirogane kid shouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. Enough with the Layton praise. A manga that should have ended 2 years ago is being dragged out endlessly. Can you honestly say the plot quality over the last 2 years matches the first 150 chapters? Hat. As if Shirogane is any different. What top-tier popular manga ends while its popularity is still high? Just wait. Hikaru no Go will definitely add world championships later. If Hikaru doesn't win 7 or 8 titles, you fans will never see the ending. During the Spring Festival, Hojimori Group's official website became a full-scale battlefield, as fans of Hikaru no Go and Source War Chronicle flooded the forums, attacking and criticizing each other without restraint. If Hojimori Group's voting system had not required real name authentication, both sides would probably have already begun mass reporting each other's manga with negative reviews and low ratings. However, the group's upper management was actually pleased to see this situation. Fan conflicts generated buzz. Buzz created topics. Topics meant traffic. Moreover, the author of Source War Chronicle, had held the #1 position within Hojimori Group for 3 consecutive years because of this manga, and his attitude had grown increasingly arrogant. In recent years, he had become temperamental when dealing with the group's commercial requests, even refusing several promotional activities during the New Year period. Shirogane's rise with Hikaru no Go also served as a reminder to him of how the relationship between a manga artist and the group should be balanced. If you have ability, the group will allocate resources to you, and you will naturally become a top-tier manga artist. But Japan never lacked capable manga artists. What many of them lacked was simply an opportunity to stand out. February passed, and March arrived. Rei's final semester of high school officially began. It had been several weeks since the chapter in which Sai disappeared was serialized, and the anger of extreme fans had mostly subsided. On the uphill road leading to school, flowers had already begun to bloom, their vibrant petals filling the air with fragrance. Rei wore his school uniform, yet among the students walking uphill, he was undoubtedly the most conspicuous. Groups of students gathered around him, pointing and whispering. Manga, television dramas, animation, how many high school students could truly remain untouched by all three? Anyone who managed that level of self-discipline was practically guaranteed success in life. For everyone else, however, exposure was inevitable. Anyone whose leisure activities included manga, TV dramas, or animation would unavoidably encounter this season's top TV drama, this season's top animated series, and the currently most popular serialized manga in Japan. Hikaru no Go. Within the school, more than half the students could be considered part of Rei's readership. The semester opening ceremony followed its usual routine. However, this time, the school arranged something special. After the teachers' speeches, Rei was invited, as one of the school's outstanding students, to give a speech about his creative journey. After all, a literary work created by a currently enrolled student being adapted into the highest-rated TV drama in the country was undeniably an educational achievement. After the ceremony, when Rei returned to the classroom, Mayu came over on her own initiative. Her expression was complicated as she spoke. The group has decided that Hikaru no Go will conclude within 6 weeks. My sister also told me that to fill the vacancy left by its conclusion, Hojimori Group will hold a serialization meeting next week. She paused briefly. My new manga will also be participating in that meeting. Then congratulations, Mayu, Rei replied after a short pause, smiling. Do your best. Mayu hesitated, then asked, don't you feel reluctant? Reluctant? Rei echoed. What's there to be reluctant about? The ending of Hikaru no Go was decided by me. For a top-tier manga, being able to freely determine its ending point as the creator, isn't that the best possible outcome? This might be the best manga you ever create in your life, Mayu said quietly. Most people would feel sad. Are you really that lacking in confidence in me? Rei smiled. I'm still confident that I can create manga even better than Hikaru no Go in the future. Mayu studied Rei's eyes carefully. There was no bravado there, no forced confidence. After a while, she leaned back in her chair, utterly deflated. Honestly, how can the gap between people be so large? We're the same age. I debuted earlier than you, yet you've already reached the top of Dream Comic. Meanwhile, I'm still worrying about whether I can even qualify for a serialization slot. Don't compare yourself to me, Rei said seriously. Leaving me aside, you're already one of the most talented young manga artists in Japan. At 17, you're qualified to submit work to a Dream Comic serialization meeting. Even if you fail this time, there's always the next time, and the time after that. He continued calmly. Being able to get serialized in Dream Comic before the age of 19 is already the mark of a rare genius in the manga world, something that appears only once every 10 or 20 years. But how can I leave you aside? Mayu replied helplessly. You're always right in front of me. And every week, my sister goes to your place to collect manuscripts. She sighed. To use Hikaru no Go as an analogy, you're Sai and I'm Akira. No matter how strong Akira is, he can never beat Sai. Rei laughed. If I weren't such a staunch materialist, I'd seriously think you had a ghost like Sai teaching you how to draw manga, Mayu said, shaking her head. You're unmatched in romance themes, and you can also dominate a Go sports manga. She extended her palm. Let's high-five. After all, next week's serialization meeting only exists because Hikaru no Go is ending. Pass some of your good luck to me, so my manga can inherit your slot. Rei paused, then smiled and lightly tapped her hand. Go for it. Chapter 119, Play Against Me. In early March, the Hojimori Group's official website released a piece of news that shocked the entire manga industry of Japan. Hojimori Group's hit manga, Hikaru no Go, would conclude within 6 weeks. On the day of its final chapter, the manga's creator, Shiro Gain, would hold an official fan meeting and Q&A session. Fans of Hikaru no Go could apply for tickets to the event through the official website. The announcement itself was barely 1,000 words long and written in a restrained, factual tone. Yet to the Hikaru no Go fan base, it struck like a nuclear explosion. Even many professionals within the manga industry were left completely stunned. Hikaru no Go is ending? What kind of joke was this? Claims that the manga's popularity had declined after Sai's disappearance were nothing more than online teasing. In reality, Hikaru no Go was still the #1 ranked work in Dream Comic. The sales of its collected volumes were skyrocketing. So who in their right mind would end a manga at such a moment? Hojimori Group would never make such a decision on its own. That meant only one thing. This ending was Shirogana's choice. The moment the news broke, long-silent Hikaru no Go fans erupted across the internet. What is Shirogane thinking? He's really ending it like this? Didn't this manga sell nearly 9 million copies last month? And it's just ending. This is insane. How is that even possible? Has Shirogane completely lost his mind? This can't be real news, right? Is today April Fool's Day? How can Hikaru no Go end in 6 weeks? What about all the unresolved foreshadowing? Did everyone forget the drunken game between Sai and CG Ogata? That was clearly set up for something. And Toyokoyo explicitly said before retiring that he wanted to play Sai again. Hikaru and Toyokoyo have never truly faced each other. Not to mention old man Kawabara. He's shown so much interest in Hikaru, yet they've never played. Most importantly, Hikaru and Akira still haven't played a single official match since becoming professional Go players. This feels like a rushed ending. No way. A rushed ending only happens when an author runs out of ideas. But this world still has endless possibilities. Even we ordinary readers can think of dozens of potential storylines. Why wouldn't Shirogane? World Championships alone could support 20 chapters minimum. Best of 3, best of 5 finals, any of those would be amazing. As long as Shirogane wants to draw, he could easily serialize this manga for years. The average sales are guaranteed to exceed 10 million per volume. 1 month of serialization equals tens of millions in income. Why would anyone stop? Has he made enough money and decided to retire? He's only earned tens of millions. At least make a few hundred million before quitting. A 17-year-old genius thinking about retiring already? Is he serious? Other than making enough money, I can't think of a single reason for him to end Hikaru no Go. Could it be that he was emotionally crushed by the backlash after Sai disappeared and decided to end it out of spite? That would be ridiculous. He's a top-tier manga artist now. Who cares about being cursed when you're earning that much? If that's really the reason, it's unbelievably irresponsible. It does feel like the kind of impulsive choice an immature teenager might make, but this is his masterpiece. Speculation flooded the internet. As for industry media, they were far less restrained. Sensational headlines appeared one after another. Genius manga artist Shirogane loses confidence after massive fan backlash, ends Hikaru no Go and prepares to retire. Cyberbullying claims another victim, Japan's manga industry loses a rising star. Made enough money, now lying flat, Shirogane ends Hikaru no Go at its peak, showing utter disrespect for his own work. 17-year-old lacks ambition, Shirogana's ceiling exposed after brief success. Online rumors, Hikaru no Go creator distracted by high school romance, frequently seen acting intimately with a female classmate. At her villa, Mayu nearly spat out blood when she read those articles. Are they seriously dragging me into this? Who else could that so-called female classmate be, if not her? Rei is simply ending his manga on his own terms. Who do these people think they are to judge him? When she saw fans in the comment sections viciously attacking the unnamed female classmate, Mayu finally snapped. She logged into her account and began arguing with them directly. As for Rei himself, Hikaru no Go was a phenomenon spanning manga, television dramas, and animation, with an audience numbering in the tens of millions across the country. That its ending would explode into a nationwide topic and trigger sensational reporting was entirely within his expectations. At this point, there was no need for lengthy explanations. He calmly opened his phone, logged into his creator account, and posted a single message. The ending of Hikaru no Go is a normal ending. The plot of the final chapter was conceived at the same time as the first chapter. This has been the intended ending for Hikaru no Go from the very beginning. It is absolutely not a rushed ending. Please rest assured. Copy, paste, and click send. Rei posted the same message from multiple accounts. He knew that what Hikaru no Go fans feared most were the rumors of a disastrous, rushed ending spreading across the internet. His statement might not completely dispel those rumors, but at the very least, it would calm the loyal fans who still trusted him. And in truth, ending Hikaru no Go here was far better than the original manga's conclusion during the Hokuto Cup arc. The original ending had been open, yet not truly open at all. The Hokuto Cup arc was built up for a long time, yet the protagonist's team ultimately failed to win, and the manga ended with the protagonist losing a match. At the very least, Rei believed that ending the story here would leave first-time readers with a sense of loss and reluctance, but not the frustration of a rushed or unfinished story. After Rei's statement was released, the heated discussions among Hikaru no Go fans noticeably cooled. That said, a number of anti-fans still lingered, waiting to see how Hikaru no Go would manage to deliver a satisfying ending within 6 weeks. Soon, another Wednesday arrived, and the latest chapter of Hikaru no Go was serialized as scheduled. Early that morning, Maki was already waiting outside the bookstore. 3 days earlier, when Hojimori Group announced that Hikaru no Go would end, she had felt completely shaken. How could this manga possibly conclude in just 6 chapters? Yet after Shirogane released his statement, she chose to trust him once more, trust the integrity of the creator who had brought Hikaru no Go this far. He wouldn't treat this manga so carelessly. He wouldn't. She bought the magazine as soon as the doors opened and hurried home. Taking a deep breath, Maki opened the magazine. The story continued from the previous chapter. At school, his friends learned from the newspapers that Hikaru had been absent from professional Go matches for several consecutive months. The scene of Hikaru leaving the Go club to become a professional Go player was still vivid in their memories. And now, his casual attitude toward the path he had chosen enraged them. Hikaru, we're still challenging Kyo Middle School this year. You'll never get another chance like this. Aren't you envious? In the manga, Hikaru's expression was filled with loss. He loved Go, but he loved Sai even more. If the price of bringing Sai back was giving up Go forever, then he would rather never play Go again. Would that really work? Maki blinked. Sai had disappeared after fulfilling his wish. Was there truly some connection between his return and Hikaru abandoning Go? Or was this merely Hikaru's self-punishment, his attempt to atone for never letting Sai play Go when he was still around? The perspective shifted to Izumi, who had returned from studying in China. After spending an entire year being brutally defeated by young prodigies there, Izumi finally returned to Japan, having beaten many of the very players who once crushed him. The first thing he heard upon returning was from Waya, Hikaru had stopped playing Go. Izumi was furious. He and Hikaru had fought fiercely over the final professional qualification, becoming each other's greatest rivals. He himself had been overage and unable to remain at the dojo. To continue pursuing professional Go, he had traveled to China, enduring ridicule and defeat, all for the sake of improving his strength in his final year. And what was Hikaru, the one who actually won that qualification, doing now? Maki felt angry as she read. Even with Sai gone, Hikaru's actions were undeniably wrong. They were irresponsible. Watching Izumi scold Hikaru in the manga, she even felt a guilty sense of satisfaction. After all, Hikaru no Go was a story about Go. All conflicts were ultimately resolved through Go. Izumi wanted to pull Hikaru back into the professional world. But Hikaru refused, afraid that Sai would never return. Their argument eventually turned into a match. A match. That nightmare game, the one where Hikaru's regretful move led to Izumi's concession. Izumi wanted to finish that game, starting from the exact move where he had made his mistake. Making a mistake wasn't the issue. Regretting the move was. He wanted to know one thing, even with his overwhelming advantage, if he hadn't hesitated, could Hikaru still have won? Hikaru, Izumi said, play against me. Do it for me. Let me resolve this knot in my heart so I can face this year's professional assessment without regrets. Finish that game with me. Maki's eyes reddened as she stared at Izumi's earnest expression on the page. That familiar, delicate emotion she always felt while reading Hikaru no Go surged back into her chest. Who said this manga was heading toward a rushed ending? Wasn't this compelling? Wasn't this deeply moving? Even for Izumi, a character who had been absent for dozens of chapters, Shirogane had carefully laid the groundwork for this moment. The turning point was clear. Hikaru might refuse to play Go for himself, but could he truly coldly reject Izumi's plea, after all the kindness Izumi had shown him? If Hikaru were truly that selfish, why would he have been willing to give up Go in the first place for Sai? To say that Shirogane had run out of ideas in the later stages of serialization, to say that this was why he was ending Hikaru no Go. Who would ever believe that? Chapter 120, Location. If I play Go again, Sai will. Hikaru's expression wavered. Hikaru, can you please play one more game with me, just for my sake? In a daze, Hikaru unconsciously sat down in front of the Go board. Hikaru, please, just one more game. I'm sorry, I can't play Go anymore. Hikaru, I'll go back as soon as this game is over. Please. Maki stared at the manga page, watching Hikaru's hand reach toward the stone bowl, watching the confusion in his eyes slowly clear. I promise you. Sai, I'm only doing this for Isumi. Not because I want to play Go myself. Sai, just one game is fine, right? Sai, it's okay, right? Answer me. Where did you run off to? Hikaru placed a stone. Isumi followed. Stone after stone was placed. Yet as the game continued, Hikaru became more and more absorbed. When he realized this, his heart twisted in conflict. Maki didn't blink once. The empty Go board slowly filled. Black and white stones spread across its surface. To be honest, even after following Hikaru no Go for 2 years, Maki still didn't truly understand Go. But every time the manga depicted an intense match like this, she read it with absolute seriousness. And then, at the most critical moment, Hikaru, completely engrossed in predicting the flow of the board, forgot that he had sworn not to play Go. At that exact instant, Sai's folding fan appeared, pointing at the board. At the very spot where Hikaru was about to place his stone. Maki froze. Hikaru froze as well. Sai, came back just like that? Goosebumps ran across Maki's skin. Her eyes burned as emotion surged uncontrollably. In the black and white panels, as Hikaru placed the stone, she almost heard the crisp click of it landing. Hikaru turned around. There was no one behind him. The folding fan from just moments ago seemed like a dream. Isumi continued playing, but noticed Hikaru hesitate. Tears welled in his eyes and slid down his chin. This way of playing, it's definitely him. He used to play like this too. I finally found him, the Sai I searched for everywhere. I never expected him to be right here. Maki's eyes filled with tears. She understood now. And because she understood, it hurt even more. Sai is here, she thought. The Sai I couldn't find anywhere, is right here on this Go board. In this game. Now, the only way I can see you, is to keep playing Go. Sai, She turned the page. Hikaru was crying uncontrollably, desperately wiping his tears. Can I, keep playing Go? Isumi, I want to play Go again. The match continued, but Maki could barely focus anymore. Hikaru was crying in the manga, and she was no better off. This was the 6th to last chapter of Hikaru no Go. In the very week when countless people claimed that Shirogane had run out of ideas and was about to ruin the ending. This chapter delivered the greatest emotional impact Maki had felt since she began reading the manga. So this is what Teacher Shirogane meant, she murmured, when he said Sai wouldn't completely disappear. She flipped through the remaining pages. Akira reaching the top 8 of the title match. Hikaru reviewing his game records. None of it stirred her emotions anymore. Her heart was completely captured by the image of Sai's folding fan. From early morning onward, manga fans, media outlets, and especially Hikaru no Go fans erupted into discussion. The buzz surpassed even the uproar from Sai's disappearance weeks earlier. I cried. This is Shirogane's writing? One chapter completely changed my view of Hikaru no Go. If anyone dares say it's going to have a bad ending again, I'll hunt them down. I was wavering too. I really thought it was heading for disaster. Goosebumps and tears, all at once. My nose still hurts. Sai was always in the game. It's like the theory that a person dies 3 times, physical death, being forgotten, and having all traces erased. Sai died physically 1,000 years ago, his spirit vanished in modern times, but his Go, his pursuit of the hand of God, lives on in Hikaru's games. This is terrifyingly beautiful. How can a 17-year-old come up with something like this? This is what genius looks like. It's such a pity this manga will end in 5 weeks. Why end it now? Akira entered the top 8, Hikaru returned to Go, this is exciting. Why stop here? I want to see the title matches. I want to see Hikaru challenge Kawabara. Could it really be that he just doesn't want to draw anymore? Or maybe Shirogane already has a perfect ending, and we're the ones complaining before seeing it. I still don't accept it. Ending here can't be perfect. Sosai really disappeared, but his go and his spirit live on in Hikaru, right? In just one chapter, the reputation of Hikaru no Go, which had suffered heavily due to the ending controversy, completely reversed. Anyone who had even the slightest affection for the manga could feel the brilliance of this chapter, the emotional release that followed total immersion. If Sai's disappearance was the chapter that brought the deepest sorrow, then this chapter was the one that finally allowed fans to let that sorrow out. Search terms like Sai lives in Hikaru's Go shot to the top of anime and manga trending lists. Though criticism of Shirogane still existed, many who had cursed him before began to reflect. He wasn't wrong. He was simply telling a story that moved him, and sharing that emotion with everyone else. For an entire day, Hikaru no Go fans were more united than they had been in weeks. The insults dropped to their lowest point, and regardless of lingering resentment, countless fans voted for Hikaru no Go without hesitation after finishing the chapter. In the internal statistics of Hojimori Group, the voting numbers for Hikaru no Go showed a clear surge compared to previous weeks. The next morning, Misaki woke up early. Her younger sister woke up even earlier. Both of them watched the breakfast time news reports from various fan communities and media outlets discussing the latest chapter of Hikaru no Go. He's really incredible, Rei, Mayu said with admiration. He turned public opinion around with just one chapter. He is impressive, Misaki nodded. It's just that he's a bit too reckless in how he handles things. Although Hikaru no Go is still performing very well, if he had serialized it for a longer period, or avoided having Sai exit the story, this manga wouldn't have faced so much criticism over the past 2 months. If that were the case, Mayu said softly, Hikaru no Go would only be remembered as a masterpiece in the history of Japan's manga industry, not as a divine work. You're the one who doesn't understand, Misaki replied calmly. A professional manga artist has to prioritize commercial viability over pure artistic pursuit. The reason is simple, serialization platforms and publishing groups are commercial companies, not charities. If Hikaru no Go weren't a Go manga, and if the group couldn't extract additional value from it, do you really think it would be allowed to end so freely? Mayu clearly disagreed, but Misaki didn't continue the argument. After tidying up the table, she said, I'm heading to work. She drove out of the villa's garage and arrived at Hojimori Group's headquarters in the city center in under 20 minutes. The moment she entered the editorial department, Misaki once again felt the complicated gazes directed her way. Over the past several weeks, Hikaru no Go's reputation had been a roller coaster. Just when everyone thought it was about to soar even higher, Sai's disappearance and the announcement of the manga's impending conclusion shook fans' confidence. When people believed the manga was about to collapse, its popularity surged instead. This fluctuation also shaped how the editors viewed Misaki. How would Hikaru no Go perform this week? Everyone knew it would rise again. The real question was by how much. Shin, the editor in charge of Source War Chronicle, was especially restless. Every time he thought his manga was about to reclaim the top spot, Hikaru no Go managed to reverse the situation yet again. What should he do now? Hikaru no Go was ending in 5 weeks. If Source War Chronicle failed to surpass it before then, history would remember Hikaru no Go as superior. Shin's mood was terrible. He was even more anxious than Misaki as 9:30 approached. But time did not wait for anyone. Misaki, already prepared, opened the report without hesitation. 1. Hikaru no Go. Total votes, 979,655. She didn't bother reading further. That was enough. Not only had Hikaru no Go retained first place, it had once again broken its own voting record. Whispers immediately spread through the editorial office. 970,000? How is that possible? Wasn't it only 890,000 last week? Hikaru no Go fans are too easy to sway. They're voting in droves again. Why can Hikaru no Go make so many controversial decisions and still be forgiven? The manga I manage had 2 ambiguous panels between the female lead and the second male lead, and its popularity completely collapsed. Classic works and ordinary works are judged by different standards. Readers' tolerance is different. Can Hikaru no Go really stay first until it ends? Putting on her headphones, Misaki shut out the noise. Heavy metal music filled her ears, and a faint smile appeared as she began her work. Over the next 2 weeks, Hikaru no Go shifted its focus to Hikaru's professional matches. Hikaru's return to the Go world was nothing short of explosive. 8 consecutive victories sent his name straight to the front pages of Go-related media. By late March, the match everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Hikaru vs Akira. The storytelling was flawless, and fans could clearly feel the unique charm of this arc. In their match, Hikaru displayed Go skills strikingly similar to Akira's. At several moments, his moves reminded Akira of the game he played when he first met Hikaru and also of that mysterious online master, Sai. At the same time, the story began weaving in a new thread. A 14-year-old prodigy from the Korea, recently promoted to professional status, who had once lost to Hikaru and had already defeated a 9th Dan player. The groundwork was being laid for an under-18 youth Go exchange tournament involving the Korea, Japan, and China. The perspective shifted once more. The story returned to the Go match between Hikaru and Akira. The longer the game continued, the stronger Akira's sense of familiarity became toward Hikaru's style of play. "In you," Akira said slowly, "I can vaguely see the shadow of another person, the shadow of someone I have been chasing for a very long time." At this point, Hikaru's strength had grown to such a level that even Akira began to suspect whether Hikaru himself might be Sai. In the eyes of the media within the story, Hikaru, Akira, and Oka were now regarded as the 3 Go players most likely to shine in the upcoming exchange tournament. Through seemingly casual dialogue, the groundwork for the Hokuto Cup was quietly laid in this chapter. At the same time, near the end of the chapter, during the middle game of Hikaru and Akira's match, Akira spoke again. "Hikaru, playing against you reminds me of Sai." "Unfortunately," Hikaru replied, shaking his head, "I am not Sai." "It is you," Akira said firmly. "He is another you. That person is the Hikaru I just met. And that person is Sai. There is another existence within you." The second to last chapter of Hikaru no Go ended on Akira's words. He's still digging holes, still leaving cliffhangers, even in the second to last chapter. "Teacher Shirogane, you're too much. Next week, Hikaru no Go is really ending. I've followed this manga for 1 year and 2 months. It feels both long and incredibly short. I feel like crying." In the end, after Sai disappeared, someone finally noticed his existence. It had to be Akira. He figured everything out. He probably thinks Sai is Hikaru's split personality. "I really want to cry." Hikaru no Go ends next week. What about the youth exchange tournament? Can Teacher Rei really wrap everything up in just 1 chapter? I don't know, brothers. See you next week. Saying see you next week feels meaningless now. I won't criticize Teacher Shirogane anymore. If you still care about Hikaru no Go, please vote for it. In late March, after the serialization of the penultimate chapter of Hikaru no Go, the Hoshimori Group's official website and the promotional displays at the group's headquarters underwent a complete overhaul. All existing posters were replaced. In their place appeared large-scale promotional advertisements for the conclusion of Hikaru no Go, produced and distributed through multiple media channels. Train stations, television screens, subways, and buses across the country all carried the same message. The final chapter of Hikaru no Go will be simultaneously serialized and released nationwide in next week's issue of Dream Comic. Chapter 121, Hikaru no Go, The End. In the bustling streets of major first-tier cities across Japan, it was no longer unusual to see GG brand video screens looping advertisements throughout the day, all promoting the conclusion of Hikaru no Go. Many fans of the TV drama, the anime, and the manga stopped in their tracks to watch. In truth, by the time Hikaru no Go had reached this point in its serialization, most fans already understood what kind of ending awaited them. It was an open ending. The manga had repeatedly mentioned the under-18 professional Go player exchange meeting jointly organized by young players from China, Korea, and Japan. Clearly, this was the challenge that Hikaru and Akira were about to face. Whether the two would bring glory to their country in that exchange match, or suffer a crushing defeat, was never something that could be fully portrayed in a single chapter. The ending of Hikaru no Go was inevitably an open one, leaving endless space for the reader's imagination. Shirogane had never intended to draw the story to the point where Hikaru won 1 or 2 major titles such as Meijin, Tenjin, or Go Saint, and then clashed with Akira in a title match after Akira himself obtained similar qualifications. Nor did he intend to depict the two protagonists traveling across the 3 major Go nations to compete in all 8 championship tournaments held in the real world, carving out a legendary career through endless victories. A conventional sports competition manga would certainly choose that path. But Shirogane was clearly tired of such cliched storytelling. After the developments of the past few chapters, fans were no longer as resentful about the impending conclusion of Hikaru no Go. Actually, it's not bad. An open ending means we don't have to worry about the manga collapsing later with a bad ending. A bad ending? Impossible. If Hikaru no Go kept being serialized like this, I'd be willing to read it for 1,000 chapters. This manga is really about Hikaru's growth. And that growth isn't about strength, but about his heart. From a mischievous child at the beginning, to someone firmly committed to the professional Go path, from rejecting Go after Sai's disappearance, to choosing to continue playing Go so he can see the only thing Sai left behind in this world, his Go and the spirit of pursuing the hand of God. Hikaru's spiritual growth has already reached its peak. After this, it would just be an endless loop of changing opponents and repeating matches. Ending it here is the right choice. But I still can't bear to see it end. Ending a story when you can't bear to part with it will make you remember it for 10 years. If those repetitive plots kept going, you'd only complain later about why the author didn't end it sooner and let the manga become bloated. Exactly. Just look at Source War Chronicle. The first 150 chapters were amazing, not much worse than Hikaru no Go. But now it feels far less exciting. It still has tons of fans and high popularity, and the author makes hundreds of millions every year from licensing and merchandise, so it's understandable that he won't end it, but honestly, it's painful to read. If teacher Shirogane really wanted to drag things out, he could easily make hundreds of millions more by stretching Hikaru no Go for another 2 years. It's completely unreasonable to criticize him for choosing not to. I agree. Ending a manga while readers still want more is a million times better than ending it after everyone is exhausted. And I heard that after Hikaru no Go finishes, teacher Shirogane plans to release 1 or 2 extra standalone volumes after the main tankban ends, to fill in some gaps. That's pretty conscientious. Anyway, good luck, Hikaru no Go. On the day the final chapter releases, even I, who never votes, will vote to support it. Same here. I'm usually too lazy to even scan QR codes, but for Hikaru no Go, I'll definitely vote. Everyone, let's go. It turned out that as long as the story was written well, fans' anger would gradually fade. The recent plot, in which Hikaru discovered Sai within Go itself, did not bring relief to Hikaru alone, it brought relief to the readers as well. Now, fans shared only one sentiment toward Hikaru no Go. Let it end perfectly, without regrets. On Friday and Saturday, the 3rd season of the still popular Hikaru no Go TV drama and the anime both announced the manga's conclusion in their end credits. As for Rei, he had begun frequently taking leave from school to cooperate with the manga group, attending press conferences, fan meetings, and commercial events. He even appeared alongside top Go players and leaders of the Go Academy, promoting Go nationwide at the peak of Hikaru no Go's popularity. As for the college entrance examination, still more than 2 months away, it was no longer a pressing concern. Rei reviewed when he had time, but no longer stressed over it. And so, Wednesday arrived. The final chapter of Hikaru no Go was released alongside the latest issue of Dream Comic. Major bookstores had already put up posters announcing the manga's conclusion. Some large bookstores even placed life-sized character standees of Sai among their manga shelves. Many fans lined up outside bookstores early in the morning, waiting for the doors to open. Zen quietly waited as well. At 8:30 a.m., the bookstore he had chosen finally opened, and the crowd surged inside. Zen walked straight to the manga section and saw that Dream Comic had given Hikaru no Go the highest honor possible for its conclusion. The cover of this issue was entirely dedicated to Hikaru no Go. Hikaru and Akira were playing Go, while Sai stood beside them. He was no longer using his folding fan to guide Hikaru's moves. Instead, he simply watched the two of them with a gentle expression as they fought with all their strength on the board. This time, Sai was not guiding the game. And this game was no longer his. He was merely an observer. Zen knew that Sai's appearance on the cover was Shirogane's final gift to the fans, but even so, a wave of melancholy washed over him. This would probably be Sai's last appearance in Hikaru no Go. Zen bought the magazine, found a seat in the bookstore, and tore open the packaging. In this issue of Dream Comic, the very first page was the serialization page of Hikaru no Go. And this final chapter was fully rendered in color. The title read Eternal Rivals. Zen stared at the title in silence for a long time. If he remembered correctly, the title of the very first chapter of Hikaru no Go had been the same. He slowly turned to the first page. The story continued directly from the previous chapter. After their Go match, Akira had sensed the shadow of another presence within Hikaru and voiced all of his suspicions aloud. Hikaru was startled, but what he felt more strongly was an indescribable sense of relief and release. He noticed it. He discovered Sai's existence. Sai, whom only I could see until now, he sensed him too. Sai, someone finally found you. Hikaru smiled, turned around, and walked out of the Go room, leaving behind only a faint sentence. Akira, perhaps one day, I'll tell you everything. The most important part of that sentence was not what Hikaru might one day tell Akira. That didn't matter. What mattered was that Hikaru did not deny Akira's words. Whether it was the other person Akira sensed within him, or any of the suspicions he voiced, Hikaru did not refute a single one. Akira's expression shifted to astonishment as he watched Hikaru's retreating figure. The full-color pages of this chapter added even greater emotional clarity to the story. Shirogana's artistry had grown steadily with each chapter, and any careful reader could clearly feel the emotions the manga sought to convey. Akira chased after him. So you really were hiding something? Tell me already. You want me to tell you? No chance. After a brief argument between the two, the result of their Go match was never revealed. Instead, that night, Hikaru fell asleep early. And in his dream, Sai appeared. He wore a gentle smile, yet said nothing. No matter how Hikaru cried, no matter how many words he poured out, Sai only gazed at him calmly, without a single response. Zen felt his nose sting. Shirogane, you bastard, you're really going to hit us with this in the final chapter too. Here, the idea that silence speaks louder than words was embodied perfectly. Sai's silence carried more weight than 1,000 spoken lines. The tears welling in Hikaru's eyes instantly stirred the hearts of countless fans who had followed Hikaru no Go from the beginning. Sai, why did you disappear? What were you feeling when you left? It was happiness. He had said it himself, he was very happy. You just didn't hear him. Zen took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. In response to Hikaru's questions, Sai merely extended his hand and offered the folding fan he held. Hikaru took it. Then dawn came. He woke up. It had all been a dream. Yet for Hikaru, and for devoted readers like Zen, that lingering sense of longing surged anew. Hikaru rose and went to the club where he and Akira had first played Go together. Akira had already reached the top 8 of the Tenjin title match. Hikaru, after wasting a year, was still competing against low-dan professional players. The two walked different paths, yet continued to compare themselves, compete, and grow. Akira fought on a higher battlefield. Hikaru, too, worked relentlessly to improve his record and ranking. Then, why is that person still only a shodan? After Hikaru finished his match and stood up, his opponent asked in frustration. Why is Hikaru still only a first dan Go player? While Akira strove toward championship titles, Hikaru also began attracting attention among professional players. Aside from Akira, those who faced Hikaru could all sense it, a terrifying strength that completely contradicted his rank. Hikaru bought a folding fan remarkably similar to Sai's and began holding it while contemplating his moves during games. Just like Sai once had. Near the end of the manga, images of key characters appeared one after another: Hikaru, Akira, Waya, Izumi, Oki, all now professional Go players. It also introduced figures from the Korea. Although the manga never depicted the Hokuto Cup itself, the sense of an approaching storm was already vividly present. The second-to-last page stopped at that very moment, making Zen's heart surge. And then, the final page. Once again, it was that familiar club. Akira and Hikaru sat across from each other at the Go table. After finishing their respective matches, they had returned here. As Hikaru placed the first stone, Hikaru no Go the end. This was no longer the ending of a single chapter. It was the conclusion of the entire manga. Zen's eyes filled with tears, his heart heavy with reluctance. He wanted to see what came next, he could feel that the future held countless wonderful moments. But all good things must come to an end. The story ended here. What was the result of the Hokuto Cup? Who ultimately claimed Tenjin title? Hikaru had already decided to challenge the Go Saint title. And what did Toyokoyo, recovering from illness, see in Hikaru's Go when he watched the broadcast? If even Akira could sense Sai within Hikaru, how could Toyokoyo not? Would those two ever face each other on the board again? So many questions remained unanswered. But perhaps, if every one of them had been depicted, Hikaru no Go would have felt bloated instead of eternal. Zen closed the magazine. It's over. Hikaru, Akira, sigh. He exhaled softly. Thank you, Teacher Shirogane, for giving me this story. Chapter 122, Speech. Since early morning, the Hojimori Group's official website had been flooded non-stop by fans. Can you hurry up and release the Hikaru no Go extra stories already? Isn't there a Hikaru no Go conclusion press conference tomorrow? Can't Hojimori Group pressure Shirogane-sensei into announcing Hikaru no Go Part 2? This is the first time in my life I've wished capitalists would be useful. I used to hate manga artists being exploited by capital, but now I hope Hojimori Group squeezes Shirogane dry. He's way too lazy. Undeniably a masterpiece. Before, I doubted how Hikaru no Go could possibly end in just 6 chapters. But now, even if you asked me to design an ending myself, I couldn't come up with one that leaves people wanting more. That final chapter stabbed me straight in the heart. Sai silently handing over the folding fan was absolutely brutal. Is that really the last time Sai and Hikaru ever meet? So where did Sai go after disappearing? And Akira and Hikaru never even told us who won their match. Didn't you read the title? It's called Eternal Rivals. Ugh, my heart feels empty. I hate this feeling. Now I'm back to a manga drought. Can Shirogane-sensei hurry up and start a new work already? I can't take it anymore. I'm going to block Shirogane-sensei on his way to school tomorrow. Are you dumb? Didn't they say there's a conclusion press conference tomorrow afternoon? Who are you blocking? Just go to the venue. I'm so uncomfortable. I really want to see what happens next. Forget it. Just wait for the extra volume. Instead of whining, hurry up and vote for Hikaru no Go. And honestly, I hope Shirogane's next manga flops hard. People need setbacks to appreciate what they've had. If his new work fails, maybe he'll come back and draw Hikaru no Go Part 2. Exactly. Everyone vote like crazy for Hikaru no Go, then fiercely boycott Shirogane's new work. Only when his next manga fails will he think about relying on his old masterpiece. I heard Hikaru no Go is Shirogane's 3rd manga. I'm bored anyway, I'm going to buy the tankban of his first 2 works. 5 centimeters per second and Tonight? Be warned, both are absolutely soul-crushing. Can they really be more tear-jerking than Hikaru no Go? Rei barely slept the entire night, scrolling through the endless comments about Hikaru no Go online. The next morning, Misaki's car was already waiting downstairs. After all, the Hikaru no Go conclusion press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m., and Rei needed to arrive at Hojimori Group early for makeup, wardrobe changes, and rehearsal of his speech. By the way, editor Misaki, Rei asked from the passenger seat, the manga replacing Hikaru no Go next week is an Isekai battle series, right? That's right. Misaki sighed. Mayu's new manga is also in that genre, but unfortunately, out of the 19 finalists at the serialization meeting, it only ranked 3rd. She missed the slot. She's been in a bad mood lately. I can tell, Rei said after a pause, sighing softly. I just hope it doesn't affect her college entrance exams. Even geniuses like Oda in his previous life, who debuted at 16 or 17, only got their first serialization at 22. Mayu's experience was actually normal for a manga prodigy. Being able to submit a work to Amatsukage Comic at 17 already qualified her as a rare genius. Rei, passing on his first attempt, was the true anomaly. She doesn't care about the college entrance exam, Misaki replied. If I hadn't forbidden it, she even considered skipping university entirely to become a full-time manga artist. But even if she stopped studying now, she'd still get into a top 10 university with ease. How could I possibly agree to that? She glanced at Rei. What about you? If you don't get into a top-tier university, are you still planning to attend? Me? Rei smiled. I'm not at Mayu's level, but I'm confident I can get into a top 30 university. Don't worry, editor Misaki. University is much more relaxed than high school. I won't give up manga just because I'm studying. Then what major are you planning to choose? Rei thought for a moment. These universities don't really have proper manga majors. Even if they did, I wouldn't need them. Most of those theory professors probably aren't as professionally experienced as I am. He chuckled lightly. I'm thinking of studying something related to animation. Manga, anime, and games are all interconnected. I already understand the manga industry, so I want to learn more about animation. That way, when my works are adapted in the future and I serve as a supervisor, I won't just be a figurehead who can't contribute anything useful. Misaki nodded. She understood. Rei had participated in the Hikaru no Go animation project largely as a symbolic presence and had clearly realized his own shortcomings. That was a good thing. Soon, the car arrived at the base of the Hojimori Group building. Rei rarely came here, so everything felt fresh. He looked around curiously as they entered. He even paused for quite a while in the lobby, staring at the life-sized Hikaru no Go character display. However, while Rei wandered casually, the Hojimori Group staff were anything but relaxed. The moment they spotted him, eyes lit up everywhere. People hurried over. "Good morning, Shirogane-sensei. Shirogane-sensei, could I get an autograph?" Shirogane-sensei. Even within Hojimori Group, Shirogane's name carried enormous weight. With Hikaru no Go dominating the industry this year, combined with Rei's youthful age and striking appearance, it was only natural that many people wanted to get close to him. Eventually, Misaki guided Rei through the editorial department. Under the editor's complicated gazes, she brought him straight to the editor-in-chief's office. Han was waiting inside. At Rei's current status, he was more than qualified to speak with the editor-in-chief directly. Of course, a meeting between the two was never going to produce any concrete outcomes. However, Rei did learn one important piece of news from Han. Thanks to the overwhelming popularity of Hikaru no Go, the film copyrights for Rei's two earlier works under the pen name Shirogane, 5 cm per second and Tonight, had been purchased by a film production company for a total of 12 million. The contract signing and official announcement would take place within the next 3 days, and there was even a chance that live-action adaptations of both works could be released as early as next year. Rei was momentarily stunned by the news. When he had first debuted, he had been completely unknown. He had never expected those two works to have any opportunity for adaptation, whether animated or live-action. And yet now, years later, they had been given a second chance. Naturally, Han also discussed matters regarding the Hikaru no Go extra volume tankban. The group hoped to collaborate with familiar film production companies to adapt parts of the extra story, such as the Hokuto Cup mentioned in the manga, into 1 or 2 live-action films. Although Hikaru no Go was a Go-themed manga with limited merchandise potential, live-action adaptation was still a viable option. From the group's perspective, this was about capitalizing on lingering fan sentiment. Rei had no objections to the proposal. He only made one point clear: he would not accept any substandard production teams for the adaptation. The two reached a preliminary consensus. Soon after, Rei left Han's office. Outside, the editors in the editorial department watched him walk out with complicated expressions, envy, jealousy, and quiet melancholy flickering across their faces. Misaki was the one who finally stepped forward and explained the situation to Rei. "The ranking results for the final chapter of Hikaru no Go were just announced," she said. The total votes for the final chapter reached 1,001,693. It ranked first again this week. It's also the first manga in Dream Comics history to break 1 million votes in a single issue, and only the 5th manga in Japan to ever achieve this. Online voting was a system that had only emerged in the past decade across Japan's major manga magazines. It was fast, convenient, and far more accessible than the old method of mailing physical ballots. As a result, reader participation had increased significantly. Even so, 1 million votes remained a nearly insurmountable threshold. That Hikaru no Go reached it, if only in its final chapter, was proof of the manga's status in readers' hearts. It also delighted Hojimori Group's operations department. Among the 6 major manga groups, only 5 manga had ever surpassed 1 million votes in a single issue. This alone showed how rare such popularity truly was. In fact, only 3 magazines had ever produced manga capable of achieving such numbers. Japan's top-selling manga magazine, Monogatari Comic, which had averaged a weekly circulation of 25 million copies last year, ranked first nationwide. The 3 manga that consistently dominated its top 3 serialization slots regularly exceeded 1 million votes each week. Yet from 4th place onward, vote counts dropped sharply, often hovering between 5 and 600,000. It was a magazine with extreme polarization. Reader attention was almost entirely monopolized by its top 3 titles. Eira, the manga artist behind Zero Type Contract, once hailed as the #1 young genius before Rei's rise, had long remained stuck between 4th and 6th place in that magazine. Japan's second best-selling magazine, Red Pin Manga, with a weekly circulation of 19 million, had also produced million-vote titles. However, those works could not maintain such numbers consistently. When the plot resonated strongly, votes surpassed 1 million, when it faltered, totals dropped back to around 900,000. As for Hojimori Comic, which sold 17 million copies weekly and ranked 4th nationwide, achieving this milestone with Hikaru no Go was unprecedented. No wonder the group's leadership was ecstatic. Even the Hikaru no Go finale press conference scheduled for that afternoon was revised at the last minute to heavily promote this achievement. Of course, envy inevitably followed. Some editors couldn't help but think bitterly to themselves. What was so special about it? It was just a Go manga. A niche genre with limited commercial upside. Even if Hikaru no Go ranked first in popularity and surpassed 1 million votes, its commercial value was still far inferior to works like Source War Chronicle, which had been adapted into films, games, and anime. At best, it brought prestige, not profit. Naturally, these thoughts were never spoken aloud. Rei himself was completely unaware of the undercurrents within the editorial department. He didn't know how many people secretly envied Misaki, the young, wealthy editor favored by Han, who had successfully signed two of Hojimori Group's greatest manga prodigies, Shirogane and Saki. Some even hoped Hikaru no Go would crash spectacularly, its sales plummeting into a cautionary tale for the industry. But none of that mattered. Hikaru no Go had already concluded, and in its final chapter, it achieved its best serialization result ever. From beginning to end, there was nothing substantial to criticize about the manga. Even media outlets that thrived on controversy found no fault worth exploiting that week. At the finale press conference that afternoon, Rei made a rare appearance before the cameras. The entire event was live-streamed nationwide. He answered several questions from the audience. "Where did Sai go?" one fan asked. Rei smiled faintly. He fulfilled his wish, and went where he was meant to go. Some things didn't need to be explained too clearly. Fans needed room for their own imagination. Whether Sai reincarnated, ascended, or truly vanished was something each reader could decide for themselves. Any definitive answer would only invite endless debate, and millions of voices. When another fan asked, "What will Hikaru no Go do after it concludes?" Rei's expression brightened slightly. "Of course, I will fully prepare for the college entrance examination 2 months from now." It was a perfectly standard answer, exactly what everyone expected. After all, Rei was still a student. But his next words detonated like a bomb, sending shockwaves through the entire venue. "In fact, I already have a concept for a new manga." The moment those words left his mouth, the atmosphere froze. "During the period leading up to the college entrance examination, I plan to further refine this concept," Rei continued calmly, his gaze sweeping across the rows of media cameras. "And after the college entrance examination." He paused briefly. "I will begin serializing it. I am confident that this will be an outstanding work, one that can surpass Hikaru no Go." The venue erupted. Not only were the fans and reporters stunned, even the staff of Hojimori Group present were completely caught off guard. Misaki's expression froze in disbelief. In the Hojimori Group president's office, Han, who was watching the live stream, spat out a mouthful of cold tea straight onto his computer screen. He stared blankly at the broadcast. "Rei, if you had news like this, why didn't you tell me when we spoke this morning? If I'd known, I would have had the entire event rebranded as a Hikaru no Go finale and new manga launch press conference." Once the initial shock passed, Han felt a sharp jolt of unease. Rei had just put himself on the spot. A new work better than Hikaru no Go? How could he say something like that so lightly? What if it failed to live up to expectations? What if it fell flat? Wouldn't he instantly become a laughingstock, a brash young genius who talked big but couldn't deliver, leaving a permanent blemish on his career? And this wasn't said behind closed doors. It was live-streamed. Across the internet, fans who had been immersed in sorrow and nostalgia over the ending of Hikaru no Go were collectively struck dumb. "Shirogane, are you messing with us? We thought you ended Hikaru no Go out of respect for the story, for its integrity, for Hikaru's completed growth arc. So what is this now?" From the outside, it suddenly looked like you'd lost interest because you already had a new idea. Online comments exploded. "So, you found a new love and abandoned the old one. What genre is the new work?" Another sports manga. This is insane. There are only 2 months until the college entrance exam, and he says the new manga will start after that? Is that even possible? There's always the possibility of delays, you know. What about the Hikaru no Go extra chapters? Will he still draw them if he's serializing something new? How is this guy even built? He hasn't stopped since debuting. 3 manga back to back. Hikaru no Go alone has more than 10 volumes, most authors take 2 or 3 years to reach that. Fast updates, high quality, 0 breaks, and he's still in high school? Is he even human? I can't take this anymore. I was heartbroken 5 minutes ago. Now I'm just confused. But amid the chaos, some voices steadied. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. No matter what happens next, Hikaru no Go is already a masterpiece. It ended perfectly. We don't have to worry about it collapsing later. Instead, we get to look forward to Shirogana's future. That's true, but he's setting the bar ridiculously high. The final chapter just broke 1 million votes. Hikaru no Go only achieved it once. Is his next work going to defy the logic again? That's arrogance, isn't it? He's a genius, what's wrong with being confident? If you don't dare to think big, how do you ever reach the top? Even if he fails, at least he dared to aim high. I just hope the college entrance exam comes quickly. Let him finish it and fully focus on manga. Has Japan ever had a manga genius this active? Honestly? Every step he's taken so far has already become history. Now it's just a question of whether his next work will set new records, or crash spectacularly. In front of her computer screen, Mayu slowly exhaled, watching the Hikaru no Go finale press conference come to an end, right after Rei's explosive announcement. If Rei is working this hard, she murmured, clenching her fists, then I can't afford to slack off either. So what if my last submission was rejected? I'll come up with a new concept. And I'll submit again. Chapter 123, New Work. In April, the neon lights of Tokyo City illuminated the urban skyline. Misaki's red sports car sped along the road, Rei sitting quietly in the passenger seat. When did you come up with the idea for a new work? After the fan meeting, on the way to drop Rei home, Misaki finally couldn't hold back and asked. Normally, after completing a manga, an author might disappear for a year or 2 without producing anything new. Misaki had never expected Rei to announce news about a new project at the conclusion fan meeting of Hikaru no Go. Probably, 1 or 2 months ago, Rei paused, then smiled. Actually, it was 4 days ago. Rei couldn't control when the detailed memories of anime from his previous life would surface, but he had gradually noticed a pattern. After finishing a work, he would start thinking about what to create next. As those thoughts accumulated, memories from his previous life would more easily resurface in his dreams at night. 2 months. Misaki fell silent. Rei had just completed a masterpiece like Hikaru no Go. The market's expectations for his next work would be unimaginably high. Any minor flaw would be magnified endlessly. From her perspective, 2 months was far too short. But what Rei had already said at the fan meeting couldn't be taken back. Besides, Rei never allowed others to interfere with his creative decisions. Knowing his personality, even if she advised him to prepare longer, he would most likely ignore her. After thinking it over, and considering that Rei had already completed 3 manga series in less than 2 years, and that the new work would only begin serialization after the college entrance exam, she decided not to dwell on it and went straight to the key question. What kind of manga is the new work? Is it still a sports competition series? Misaki asked. It's a hot-blooded battle manga, Rei said. But not only that. Actually, besides this one, I also have another battle-type work in mind. Hearing this, Misaki immediately slowed down on the overpass. She pondered for a moment, then turned the steering wheel, exited the overpass, and drove straight toward a nearby cafe. Editor Misaki, what is this? Since you've already said that much, we need to sit down and talk properly, Misaki said. They took seats inside the cafe. Rei, not particularly interested in drinks, ordered a hand-brewed coffee. Misaki, on the other hand, ordered several desserts, cake, pudding, and more. 2 works? She asked while eating. You already have clear concepts for both. Yes. And, have you decided on their titles? Hunter x Hunter. And One Punch Man. In truth, Rei's memories of anime from his previous life often surfaced through dreams. Sometimes, he would dream of several works in a single night. 4 days ago, he had recalled both of these at once. Both were super popular works from his previous life. Since he remembered them, there was no way Rei would let either go. But that also brought up an awkward issue. Neither of these works had an ending in Rei's memory. Yoshihiro Togashi, the author of Hunter x Hunter, went on another long hiatus after the Chimera Ant arc. Until Rei transmigrated, there was still no sign of the series ever concluding. One Punch Man was similar. The original author one's extremely slow update pace, combined with Murata-Yuzuki's endless revisions and redraws in the remake version, meant the series also showed no hope of finishing anytime soon. But would Rei give up on these works just because they lacked definitive endings? Of course not. In fact, many legendary works are remembered precisely because their endings are ambiguous or unfinished. Hunter x Hunter never ending might even be a blessing. If it ended poorly, like Yu Yu Hakusho, its reputation could suffer. Leaving it open allows fans to believe the protagonist is always continuing his journey. Besides, Hikaru no Go itself already had an open ending. Rei felt no psychological pressure about doing the same again. Hunter x Hunter could end at the Chimera Ant arc, just like the anime, leaving room for imagination. As for One Punch Man, it was even easier. Some manga, One Piece, Naruto, Attack on Titan, set a clear ultimate goal from the start. Ending before the protagonist achieves that goal would inevitably be labeled a bad ending. But One Punch Man was different. Saitama simply drifts through life, punching monsters when they appear, taking a kelp monster home to make soup, or worrying about supermarket discounts when nothing happens. Rei could easily end the story after the Monster Association arc, leaving it open-ended without any sense of incompleteness. After Rei briefly explained the concepts and highlights of Hunter x Hunter and One Punch Man, he casually added, "So, would it be possible to serialize both at the same time in Dream Comic?" Misaki immediately shook her head. That idea is far too naive. This is a matter of fairness. If we make an exception for you, what do you think other manga artists will feel? If everyone did that, authors would start rushing new manuscripts while their current works were still ongoing, desperately trying to secure better positions. The entire serialization system would collapse. Rei thought for a moment, then said calmly, "But I'm confident that both works will become popular." "I believe you," Misaki said after a long pause, sighing softly. "But the upper management of the group won't agree to it. And because of the contract you signed with the Hojimori group, during the specified contract period, your manga can only be submitted to Hojimori," Misaki continued. "Even if you were capable of serializing 2 works at the same time, the group would still only approve 1. If your creative drive is truly that strong, then instead of trying to serialize 2 mangas simultaneously, it would be better to concentrate on a single work and serialize it at high intensity first. After that concludes, you can immediately move on to the next. That model is entirely feasible. The Hojimori group would never allow a manga artist to serialize 2 titles simultaneously in Dream Comic. However, they had never prohibited popular manga from publishing 30, 40, or even more pages per week. In creative industries, speed itself is a weapon. As long as quality is maintained, higher output naturally translates into stronger momentum and influence. Unfortunately, for ordinary manga artists, producing 20-odd pages per week was already considered the absolute limit. Who would dare to push further? A trace of disappointment flashed through Rei's eyes. What Misaki said was completely reasonable. But for Rei, time was the one thing he could not afford to waste. The works he had consumed in his previous life were constantly resurfacing in his mind. Who knew when memories of Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, or Bleach might all emerge at once? Slow serialization would truly be a waste. Then, after a brief pause, Rei suddenly thought of something. "Editor Misaki, the contract I signed with Hojimori doesn't prohibit me from doing other creative work, does it?" Misaki nodded. "That's correct. The restriction applies to submitting manga to other platforms within 2 years after Hikaru no Go ends. If you begin a new serialization in Dream Comic, the contract will be renegotiated. However, if you submit manga to another platform during this period, you would have to abandon the pen name Shiro Gain." Her ears turned faintly red as she said this. Part of the reason she had urged Rei to begin a new work within 2 years was precisely because of this clause. Even though she trusted him, 2 years was too long, anything could happen. She had no intention of letting REI slip into another group's hands. Then submitting an original script directly to an anime production company should be fine, right? REI asked. How would an anime studio invest in an unproven original? Misaki stopped halfway through her sentence. She suddenly realized what REI was planning. Wouldn't REI understand that logic already? He wasn't planning to pitch his script. He was planning to fund it himself. You're planning to invest your own money and produce your work as an anime? Misaki asked quietly, blinking. If REI was both the screenwriter and the investor, production companies wouldn't care much at all. You provide the budget, they provide the labor. Even if the project turned out poorly, they would still complete it. After all, they were only being paid for production. You can pass my proposal to the editorial department, REI said decisively. If Editor-in-Chief Han agrees, I'll serialize both works. If not, I'll submit Hunter x Hunter to the Dream Comic serialization meeting. As for One Punch Man, I'll self-fund it and produce it as an anime. Misaki was stunned. She sat in silence for a long time, unsure how to respond. Finally, she exhaled slowly. I'll relay your proposal, but don't hold your hopes too high. This approach aligns best with your personal interests, and I respect that. However, it will almost certainly make some of the group's upper management unhappy. Unhappy? REI asked, puzzled. In Japan's manga industry, publishing groups tend to treat popular manga artists as company assets, Misaki explained. Not just Hojimori, the other 5 major groups are the same. What they want most is for their artists to focus solely on serialization and continue generating value for the group. They strongly dislike artists getting involved in copyright operations, commercial decisions, or development work. Especially if you become both an anime investor and a screenwriter. If your project fails, it's fine. But if it succeeds... She didn't finish the sentence. REI understood perfectly. If the anime flopped, it would only prove that Shirogane was nothing without the Dream Comic platform. But if it became a hit, the group's executives would be both threatened and resentful. Why should I care what they think? REI said calmly. If he worried about everyone's opinions, how could he ever move forward? He was cooperating with Hojimori to become a great manga artist, not to become a senior employee obligated to manage others' emotions. Misaki couldn't help laughing. Pfft. Despite being an editor at Hojimori, her own mother had endured many unpleasant experiences working with the group in the past. REI's words, blunt as they were, gave her an odd sense of satisfaction. All right, she said, meeting REI's gaze. I understand your position. There's only one thing I want to say. In the entire history of Japan's manga industry, no one at 17 has achieved what you have. In the future, when people talk about manga prodigies, your name will be impossible to ignore. But becoming a legend, that road is still long. Your next work is critical. REI nodded. I understand what you mean, Editor Misaki. I won't let anything interfere with my manga serialization. Misaki smiled, stood up, and extended her hand. Then I'll look forward to the market performance of your next 2 works. She said 2 works, but she knew very well that the group would never approve simultaneous serialization. Most likely, Hunter x Hunter would be serialized in Dream Comic. As for One Punch Man, the title was crude, the length shorter, and even if it became an anime, its performance would probably never surpass Hunter x Hunter. REI stood up and shook her hand. Chapter 124, Planning. After REI and his friend, who was also his manga editor, Misaki, confirmed his future development direction, he fully immersed himself in the adaptation work for Hunter x Hunter and One Punch Man. Since both works were set in fictional worlds, REI no longer had to worry about adapting their backgrounds to this world's Japan. All character names, locations, and terminology could be preserved exactly as in the originals. The original One Punch Man was a webcomic created by one sensei, and to be frank, the art quality of the early version could have been surpassed by many talented elementary school students. Precisely because of this, One Punch Man failed to gain widespread popularity at first. It was only later, when Yuzuki Murata discovered the story, contacted One Sensei and completely redrew One Punch Man with his extraordinary artistic skill, that the manga exploded in popularity worldwide. However, in REI's previous life, this manga was both elevated and ultimately undermined by Murata. In the later stages of serialization, Murata insisted on indulging his own imagination, deviating heavily from one's original storyline. He introduced elements such as Orakai, a self-created version of Blast, and even a self-created god, which led to a massive wave of criticism and dissatisfaction among readers. Rei believed that his current drawing ability already surpassed Murata's. Even if One Punch Man were not serialized as a manga, he absolutely had to be personally involved in its character design and overall visual direction. As for Hunter x Hunter, its original art style leaned toward the older side. Rei would need to make careful adjustments. The characters' facial features and expressions would remain unchanged, but their clothing and overall styling would be redesigned to appear more modern and better aligned with contemporary Japanese aesthetics. To be honest, this alone represented a tremendous workload. Time quietly passed, and mid-April arrived. On this day, editor Misaki brought Rei some news. As expected, Hojimori Group rejected Rei's proposal to serialize 2 mangas simultaneously in Dream Comic. Even Misaki herself was harshly criticized by senior management simply for raising the suggestion. Their words were blunt and unequivocal. Hojimori Group has no privileged manga artists. These words were clearly meant to be relayed to Rei as well. When Rei heard Misaki recount the conversation over the phone, a faint smile appeared on his face. "All right. I'm really sorry you were criticized because of me," Rei said calmly. "I understand Hojimori Group's rules. For the next stage, I'll focus entirely on Hunter x Hunter and submit it before the late April serialization meeting." "You don't need to take it to heart," Misaki replied softly. "But in that case, what about One Punch Man? Have you chosen an animation production company yet?" "No," Rei shook his head. "But I do have funds. Between last year's Hikaru no Go royalties and various copyright dividends, my capital is still quite substantial. If I have money..." "That's not the point at all," Misaki interrupted seriously. "Rei, you're thinking far too simply about the animation industry. A high-quality anime isn't something you can create just by throwing money at it. Funding is important, yes, but it's absolutely not everything." "What do you mean?" Rei asked. He truly didn't understand how the animation industry operated. Under Misaki's explanation, Rei finally began to grasp the reality. Japan has no shortage of animation production companies, many of which have created legendary works in animation history. But assuming that investing tens of millions of yen into a large studio would guarantee a top-tier anime was a grave misconception. These companies typically work on multiple projects simultaneously. Their manpower is limited. So who gets the best director, series composition, animation director, key animators, producers, voice actors, and background artists? The answer was obvious. Their own original projects. Original works belong to the company, allowing them to profit from future adaptations, merchandise, and long-term IP value. But if Rei entered merely as an outside investor, those companies would only earn a one-time production fee. From their perspective, there was no incentive to invest their top talent. More often than not, the work would be subcontracted, then subcontracted again, until it ended up in the hands of a small studio with limited resources. The quality of the final product was easy to imagine. Rei's expression immediately turned awkward. Spending a fortune to create a disaster? This is why our group's manga adaptations are almost always entrusted to the same few studios, Misaki explained. Then she hesitated. Rei, if you trust me, I can introduce you to a company. She paused briefly before continuing. Strictly speaking, she didn't want to interfere with Rei's business decisions. After all, she was an editor at Hojimori Group. Helping an artist secure an animation studio crossed professional boundaries. But she still said it. Not as an editor. As a friend. On the other end of the phone, Rei smiled. Miss Misaki, please go ahead. You know the anime Dragon Spirit Warrior, right? Rei nodded. It was a popular anime that premiered in October last year, produced by Cuda, a well-known animation production company in Japan. The 9th episode, the one fans praised as a god-tier episode, was actually outsourced. You can check that episode's quality yourself. Rei immediately understood what Misaki was getting at. I haven't watched that episode in full, but I've seen clips online, Rei replied. It really was extremely well made. So, Miss Misaki, does that mean the episode was outsourced to the company you're talking about? Yes, Misaki answered without hesitation. The owner of that studio is my university classmate. I became a manga editor after graduation, and she started her own animation company. As Misaki continued, the picture became clearer to Rei. She spoke very frankly. She had great confidence in the production capability of the animation company Illumination, but recommending it to Rei also meant introducing work to her old classmate. She did not hide the fact that she had personal motives. Small animation studios like Illumination often didn't have steady projects every quarter. Sometimes they went a year, or even two, without producing an independently led anime, relying instead on outsourced work from major studios to survive. If they accepted Rei's project, they would unquestionably pour all their resources into it. Rei closed his eyes and thought quietly for a moment. In Japan, there were certainly many capable animation studios. But most of them wouldn't take an original anime project like One Punch Man seriously, especially one without prior market validation. The studio Misaki introduced was small, but since its founding, it had repeatedly delivered individual outsourced episodes that were highly praised by audiences. More importantly, Misaki was confident that the studio would treat Rei's project with 100% commitment. I understand, Rei finally said. I'll focus on the late April serialization meeting first. He smiled lightly. After Hunter x Hunter is officially approved for serialization, I'll ask you to make the introduction. I want to visit the studio personally before making a final decision. In truth, neither Misaki nor Rei were particularly worried about the serialization meeting. Rei's previous work, Hikaru no Go, already had overwhelming influence. For ordinary manga artists, Dream Comics serialization meetings required them to demonstrate unique highlights and market potential just to earn a chance. But for someone of Rei's stature, as long as the manuscript had no obvious flaws, serialization was almost guaranteed. The so-called serialization meeting for Hunter x Hunter would most likely be a formality. Unless the work itself failed catastrophically, any manga Rei submitted in the future would have an extremely high probability of passing review. Understood, Misaki said. Then she added softly. Rei, the college entrance exam is only a month and a half away. I know you've thought carefully about releasing a new manga at this time. The exam may not be especially important in your life plan, but even so, I still wish you good luck. Thank you, Rei replied sincerely, then hung up the phone. He exhaled deeply and closed his eyes. At this moment, he had only two tasks. The serialization meeting in late April corresponded to a manga slot that would conclude in mid-June. Coincidentally, the release date would fall in the second week after the college entrance examination. That was precisely why Rei had confidently announced at the Hikaru no Go finale press conference that his new work would begin serialization after the exam. Once the serialization meeting concluded, the next step would be finalizing the animation production for One Punch Man. Rei opened his eyes. It seemed that this year, he was going to be extremely busy. Chapter 125, Discussion. Japan is vast, but the manga industry is largely concentrated in first-tier cities such as Tokyo City and Osaka. More than 80% of the country's manga companies and industry professionals are clustered in these urban commercial districts. Although Shirogane had finished Hikaru no Go the previous month and publicly announced that a new work would be released after the college entrance examination, many people in the industry did not truly believe it. To them, this sounded no different from a game's announced release date, something you could say, but something few would actually keep. Delays were the norm, promises kept were rare. A first-tier manga artist in Japan starting a brand new serialization only 2 months after finishing a hit work? That sounded almost impossible. Public expectations for Shirogana's next manga were already comparable to, if not higher than, Hikaru no Go. Could anyone really conceive a work of that caliber in just 2 months? If it were a story planned in advance, that seemed even less believable. During the serialization of Hikaru no Go, Shirogane averaged more than 40 pages per week, all while attending school every day. These 2 months were also reserved for college entrance exam preparation. Where, exactly, would he have found the time to prepare another masterpiece? Unless Shirogane intended to hastily produce a third-rate manga, there was no way a new work could appear in June. Next year's June sounded far more realistic. Yet, coincidentally, a piece of news began circulating quietly among manga artists across Japan. At the late April serialization meeting for Dream Comic Journal, Shirogana's new manga would participate in the selection. Once people heard this, the implication was obvious. As long as Shirogana's new work had no fatal flaws, the serialization slot was essentially guaranteed. When comparing past achievements, potential, popularity, and fanbase, which of the other competing manga artists could possibly rival him? The editors at Hojimori Group were not fools. They would never create an industry-wide joke by rejecting Shirogana's new manga. Originally, this information was known only to a small circle within Hojimori Group. But Shirogana's fame had grown too great. In a company of that size, loose tongues were inevitable, and the news soon spread through various channels. On Hojimori Group's official website, Hikaru no Go fans, who had recently shifted their attention to the TV drama and anime after the manga's conclusion, suddenly couldn't sit still anymore. Teacher Shirogane already has a new manga ready for serialization. So fast? It's only April. Hikaru no Go ended in March. Didn't Shirogane say the new work would be released after June? If there's a delay, we might not see it until July, August, or even October. A manga released in June has to go to the serialization meeting in April. Do you think the magazines you buy today were drawn yesterday in someone's living room? With tens of millions of copies, printing and distribution take weeks. This is insane. It's only been 1 month. Are there any manga artists in Japan more hardworking than teacher Shirogane? I'm in tears. Hard work means nothing without skill. Did the leak mention what genre his new work is? I hope it's another sports competition manga. His romance manga is great too. 5 centimeters per second and Tonight are both being adapted into live-action films next year. That proves his romance works have serious market appeal. I'm so lucky. I only started reading Hikaru no Go last week, and in 2 months I'll already get to see teacher Shirogana's new work. While REI was fully immersed in polishing the first 3 chapters of Hunter x Hunter for submission to the serialization meeting, related news was already spreading rapidly online. Even though Hojimori Group had yet to officially promote anything, Shirogana's new manga had already become the focal point of Japan's manga industry that month. Would this young genius's 4th work reach an even greater height and firmly establish his position in the manga world? Or would it mark a turning point, his popularity fading, fans dispersing, and his brilliance proving to be only a fleeting flash? By mid to late April, REI took official leave from school and devoted himself entirely to refining the plot and details of Hunter x Hunter. 99% of the original manga was perfectly fine, but some elements required adjustment. For example, in the original first chapter, Gon's motivation for searching for his father conflicted slightly with contemporary mainstream values. When his adoptive mother Mito told him that his father, Jing, had abandoned his wife and child to become a hunter, Gon, not yet 10 years old, did not feel anger. Instead, he replied, "But if someone is willing to abandon their child for a job, doesn't that mean it must be an incredible job?" In REI's previous life, this line might not have seemed problematic. But in modern Japan, such thinking was clearly unacceptable. The prevailing belief was simple: no profession, no dream, and no ambition could ever take precedence over family. However, these were ultimately minor details and did not affect the core direction of the story. Moreover, the original manga was already highly regarded, especially in its early stages. Both the artwork and panel composition were solid and well above standard. REI intended to stay as faithful to the original work as possible. As for the later stages, when Yoshihiro Togashi's attitude became noticeably casual, relying on rough drafts, heavily blackened pages, and long blocks of dialogue that forced readers to imagine entire scenes as part of the serialized content, that was another matter entirely. REI planned to carefully redesign those portions when Hunter x Hunter eventually reached that part of the story. Time soon arrived at April 22. Misaki personally came to REI's home that day. She spent a full 2 hours carefully reading the first 3 chapters of Hunter x Hunter that REI had prepared. After a long while, she closed her eyes and let out a slow breath. "Well?" REI asked with curiosity. "What do you think?" "It's quite interesting," Misaki said without hesitation. "But it only reaches the interesting stage." REI immediately understood what she meant. For most manga artists, the early chapters of a work naturally focus on setup. Just like in Go or chess, everyone begins with standard openings. It's difficult to see any decisive advantage or disadvantage in the early phase. This was even more true for a medium to long serialization like Hunter x Hunter. In the first few chapters, many key characters had not yet appeared, and the plot was still laying its groundwork. The explosive turning points Misaki was looking for simply couldn't appear that early. However, this was precisely the kind of manga that became more addictive the further one read, one that grew more profound and astonishing with each arc. Whether Yoshihiro Togashi would leave it unfinished in the future was unknown. After all, he had a history of doing so. But at the very least, up through the Chimera Ant arc, Hunter x Hunter was unquestionably worthy of being called a masterpiece. In the following days, REI also began progressing with the creation of One Punch Man. By comparison, there was far less he needed to modify. The story was already set in an alternate fantasy world, and since REI himself was acting as the investor, he didn't need to obsess over minor details. Although the animation production company had not yet been finalized, REI had already begun designing characters for the project. On April 26, Hojimori Group officially held the Dream Comic serialization meeting. As for the outcome, there were no surprises. Hunter x Hunter overwhelmingly crushed the other submitted works in terms of evaluation scores. Naturally, this included Mayu's new manga. This was her second time submitting a work to the Dream Comic serialization meeting, but unfortunately, she was eliminated again, this time as the fourth-place entry. Sigh. Although she couldn't help but sigh, Mayu possessed exceptionally strong emotional control. Still, since this attempt had failed, her next opportunity would likely not come for several more months. As a result, her immediate focus inevitably shifted to another direction. The Japanese college entrance examination, now only a month away. As time moved into late April, and with Hunter x Hunter officially securing its serialization slot, Hojimori Group began its promotional rollout. An announcement was posted directly on the official website. Hojimori Group's contracted manga artist Shirogana's new work will officially begin serialization in June. This was no longer an online rumor or insider leak, it was confirmed, concrete information. And the moment the announcement went live, REI's fans erupted. So everything people had been saying online, it was all true.
Thanks for listening.